Good afternoon, morning, or potentially evening, everyone. This is episode 47 of the Lookout Sir Warhammer 40,000 podcast. A Warhammer 40,000 podcast, as was obvious by the nature of what I've already said. But ultimately, it is made, produced, developed, and now delivered to you, the fine people of the internet. I hope you're all enjoying a wondrous lockdown. I certainly know that I am. I am in no way going more and more crazy by the moment due to the inevitable remaining indoors for the foreseeable. How are you finding that side of things, Phil? How's staying within the confines of your home treating you?
I'm coping okay at the moment. This is it's been a good week. I've got like a bit of a routine going, so yeah, sort of managing.
I understand that, mate. I understand that. In so many ways, I feel like the people of Games Workshop have got a bit mad because I've just stumbled onto their website and they're now trying to sell us books from like 4 years ago for 7th edition. Not even physically, but digitally. What kind of lunatic would want to buy those?
I quite like that idea because some of those books are the sort. I mean, I'm not going to get them, but they're the sort of things that I potentially would, because I do actually enjoy reading just the campaign and lore side of things. It's like, if you haven't got the Gathering Storm books, which I don't know if they're still on sale digitally, but they were the ones they did like a week ago.
Yeah, no, they've moved on to moved on to the Warzone Democles with Kion and Monkai, and they've also got Sanctus Reach. So Hour of the Wolf.
I remember Sanctus Reach. That was quite an exciting time for the old Guard and the Orcs and the Space Wolves.
Well, that was the early beginnings of when they started doing their first ever foray into box sets with characters in them.
Oh, yeah.
But just so as he's not excluded from the conversation, on the topic of characters, we're joined, of course, by the infamous Joe Coles. How's it going, Joe?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good.
What a rare and beautiful privilege it is to see you here on the Lookout Sir 40k podcast.
Well, I'm so busy with everyone else's podcasts.
You have little time for your own.
I know.
I'm going to get you on mine, aren't I, Joe?
Yeah, I'm going to be you in that one. You see?
Oh yeah, because I get to be Dan.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Krieg, so that would be excellent. So I'll be able to ask you all the weird questions.
Okay, I was going to say, so am I the clueless one in this podcast? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe.
Tread carefully, Joe. Tread carefully. No, Phil. No, you're the fun, knowledgeable one. That's you.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I will be on the Krieg podcast. Of course, I will.
Of course. Yeah. Don't talk about it though, Phil, because the teasing of it, people might think it's going to become reality. You were talking.
It
about...
is.
Is
You've
it?
got
is
a name
actually...
and everything.
What are you going to call it?
It was because obviously it's me and Toke from last episode because it was so popular. Me and Toke, and then Joe as the third man, and I was going to call it Two Spades and a Plank. Two shovels and a plank.
2 shovels and a plank.
Because it's very Krieg themed. I thought it was quite suitable.
So what Joe's saying is that in this scenario, you're our plank.
Yes. Yeah, I clearly am.
It's very witty of you, Joe, there. Good work.
I know, right? Just
did it without even realising it.
I know. Yeah.
Are you the plank in the Dark Elder podcast?
We're all equal, but the thing is, because it's Dark Elder, it'll be like we're all equal, but we're all trying to secretly kill each other.
That's it. Okay. I thought you just told me Paulie just wouldn't shut up.
No, he's just on waffles, waffle.
Oh, so he's the Dan then.
Oh,
he's Dan.
Oh, unbelievable. Paulie, I feel your pain. It's hard to put these things together and do all the work and get, abused for it. It's a tough thing, mate. We're there for you.
Because what else would I be doing on my time? Maybe more painting.
It's true.
Maybe I'd get to play more Xbox.
Absolutely. Although a game we tried to play again the other day, but Joe has decided he now hates it, is Tabletop Simulator, wasn't it, Joe?
I hate it with a passion.
I just don't understand how someone who loves 40k as much as you do can't, just sort of allow themselves to settle for the temporary solution that is Tabletop Sim.
Because it's because I can play Dawn of War, and that's better. It's one of those like if I want to play Warhammer on a computer, I'll play like a more real version of the game, because there's actually shooting stuff in that one. I have to use less of my imagination. Whereas Tabletop Simulator is janky at the best. So I'm going to move this model here. Oh no! Like, this tiny 1-inch movement has now catapulted it into the atmosphere.
I have to admit, I got some Shadow Spectres that I've been playing with, and their models have got the weirdest physics. So, like, when you try and move them, they like to, like, stick to things, and it's like, oh, I see.
It's like, I'm gonna roll 27 dice. I've rolled nothing but 1s and 2s because the weird random dice thing on this decides that, like, that's average. Because
I mean, that sounds about right to Phil, though, doesn't it?
Oh. That's what I'm used to.
That's Phil's waking nightmare. Is Tabletop Simulator dice forever.
Yeah, but it's just, it's and the whole, like, what I do like about it is that the whole thing is basically community driven, and since the whole world's come to a screeching halt, all of the computer nerds of our nerd community have got together and made all these wonderful things for everyone to use for free. And that's really good, and I appreciate that. And it gives people the chance to scratch an itch. But I wish someone would actually work on the game engine.
But the game works
fine.
I
think it's designed more for... card games and board games is its bread and butter. So tabletop games are doable, but it's almost like it's not custom built for something like 40k. So I can't really see it ever being a perfect system for it.
No, it requires a lot of, it requires a lot of statements of intent as opposed to literal, facsimiles of how these things would occur on the tabletop.
But the only armies that really work on it, in my opinion, are gunline armies. If your army has 0 to no movement, you're laughing.
Right. I say that I played a few games with listener to the show Tom, and I also played a few games with other listeners to the show Will, and we enjoyed ourselves playing those. That was fun. It may have been that they were fans of the show, so they said nice things about me while I was playing games with them while having early conversations that I'd never shared with them before. So maybe they just were so blown away by the fact that I'm such a humble, down-to-earth and very kind of, modest human being that I would play games with people who listen to our show over the internet, So maybe that was what I enjoyed about the experience most. But
we could do other things with people who listen to the show. For example, we could do like a hangout and paint.
We could do a hangout and paint.
We don't need to just do playing games in a poor facsimile of how you actually
we could play Call of Duty, because I'm good at that. And I could win.
That's not quite 40k though.
But you see the root of his problem with Tabletop Simulator, because he's good at it and he can win. He was losing so bad after turn 1. 2 Ravagers dead. He was not a happy boy.
Yeah, basically, because like we did this series of rolling where every dice that Dan rolled was a 4, 5, or 6. Every single one that I rolled was a 1, 2, or 3. And this went on for like my entire turn of being shot at. And it was just like, no, I'm done now.
I mean, again, I've got the whole... I recorded the whole thing, so I might, put it up on the internet for people to see, so they can be the judge.
And they will judge you.
The one turn that Joe had before he got too salty and went away.
Yeah.
Although, interestingly, you didn't do anything overly aggressive to end it. You just sort of were like... You just kind of... Well, it wasn't aggressive, it was just more kind of passive-aggressive, I suppose. You just became more and more disengaged as the game went on. Like, you're right, Joe, you're going to move your stuff. Yeah, sure. I've never seen him that way. He was disheartened. It was terrible.
Like, yes, I'll do the stuff. I'll touch my dice and hope that somehow my mouse explodes and kills me, and this pain will be over.
Exactly. You've changed up the charger on your laptop, put a few extra volts in it, just so as it hopefully just blows up in your face.
Yeah, I'm like, piece of dust.
I mean, you're a very in-demand person, though, with all these podcasts, mate. In some respects, it would be peace for you, wouldn't it?
I know. I do. I would love a day where I didn't actually have to do anything. Where no one made any demands of me. I could just play on my Xbox like from waking up to when I go to bed.
Why don't you just make that your life for a little bit, mate?
I might do.
You should just do that, man. After today, you've finished your Lookout Sir commitments. It's now Thursday. You can wake up on your Friday and you just go, nah, I'm not having it anymore.
Well, no, but I have a child.
Oh, is the child arriving tomorrow?
No, the child is already here.
Oh, the child.
He's
when's the child going away again? Monday?
It's Sunday.
Then Monday
I
is
will
the day,
put
Joe.
her in the catapult and poof, off she goes.
Off she goes. Is this some sort of weird arrangement where you just kind of keep her locked away somewhere during the week, or is it that she's only allowed on the house on weekends, or is it more deeply rooted than that?
No, she's. I let her in. I let her out for little runs in the garden, and then in the house, back into the cupboard.
Back into the cupboard with you. Fair enough. Anyway, we didn't get to talking about the fact that they're selling old books. I mean, I already own all these books because I have all the 7th edition books because I'm cool. Thank God I'm now married. I mean, if any woman who wasn't my wife entered my home and saw my, nerdy den, I don't think I'd ever stand a chance.
You'd be like, what? Like, so where's your teenage son at the moment then? He's like, he's out.
He's out, yes. Oh, that's where that is.
He's off being a virgin somewhere.
Indeed. God bless him. Do you ever remember that? Actually, there was someone on the internet once, wasn't there? I think we may have talked about it before, but it was like there was a woman on like the news before in the olden times where the news used to talk about things other than a coronavirus, which obviously stay safe, follow government guidelines, you know the deal. Where she was saying, I would have rather have walked in on my son masturbating than finding him reading a White Dwarf.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what a perv.
I know, right?
Anyway, there you go. But yeah, would you buy Montkai or Kion or even Hour of the Wolf or the Red War, Joe?
No, because I didn't read the stories in those back when they were released. Like, I'm not going to read them now, and there's no useful rules in there. Like, we buy the books, right, for the rules, and then the story kind of comes second.
I'm very much that person, yeah. The thing is, I like them as little artifacts. I like going back. I mean, the other day we were having a chat over the Skypes, and I was reminded that there was a beautiful photography book in the 7th edition rulebook, and I was like, oh my god, yeah, there's this really amazing, like almost like coffee table book of really beautiful 40k photographs. But that's really it, really. Those are the only real instances where I think, oh, that's a curiosity.
I discovered, right, behind me, where I keep my sword on, right, I have at the time it was like 300 quid, right? And it's a limited edition. Hang on, if I could get the blooming thing open.
Okay, here we go. The
anticipation. Edition. Oh, what edition is it?
Joe,
the one with
you have managed to say nothing for a minute, Joe. What is this thing?
It's a limited edition 6th edition codex, right?
Oh, you bought a limited edition 6th edition codex?
Yeah.
For which army, Joe?
Oh, I had one of them.
Not codex, rulebook.
Oh, rulebook. Okay, good. There we go.
It's the one with it's the one that's got it's still got the templates in the back, like the round ones that you can cut out.
Oh, very nice. Yes. So hang on, they give a limited edition rulebook, and it only came with cut out templates.
Well, no, it comes in a red. Not red. I've got my words are all.
Is it like a slipcase?
It's a slipcase, but the front of it.
Is it any wonder why Joe stopped doing unboxings on our channel?
Yeah, it opens out, and it looks like the front of a cathedral, and then the book's like that. It's a number 141 out of 4,000, and I got it from my work for free. I didn't steal it. Basically we couldn't even give it away because no one wanted to buy it. And it'd been up on our eBay like 5 times, just went round and round and round, and no one ever bid on it. And I was like, fine, it's mine now.
I mean, by all accounts, the 6th edition rules were one of the messier rule sets in terms of... Yeah, they were terrible.
But the book itself is gorgeous, and the box it comes in is really, really nice.
I think I did feel like they made a number of very weird decisions in the 6th edition rules that became quite abundantly obvious very quickly. I've always sort of said this, that the 7th edition rule set is actually a very good rule set. It's just that they mucked it up with everything else that they added into it, such as obviously formations and detachments, and the codex creep in 7th was something absolutely unreal. But the rules themselves, I felt, were pretty almost, definitely getting towards.
Right, that's why Horus Heresy is so popular.
Well, it certainly was back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was then because everyone hated the normal game.
Yes, yeah. Well, again, even then, I mean, I suppose that's the thing, wasn't it? With Horus Heresy back in the day, when they introduced Horus Heresy, all of a sudden, they had inadvertently, and I don't necessarily think the Forge World guys did this on purpose, but I think they inadvertently actually had done one of the core principles of 3rd edition 40k, which was establishing the baseline. Because when you hear Rick Priestley and Alessio Cavatore talk about like the old game design world of 3rd edition, they kind of go, just so everyone is aware, weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength, toughness, free was our baseline, right? Like, that's always what they used to say. It's like, in 3rd edition, free was the baseline, and then you scaled up and down from that. Whereas, obviously, as the editions rolled on, and Rick and various other people had left the things, the Space Marine became the baseline. So all of a sudden, the game became all about most of the stuff was baseline 4, which meant that everything in the game was good, which meant that the whole thing just went a bit bonkers. Whereas, obviously, when you turned Heresy into a baseline of everything was 4s, and that actually was their baseline, yes, okay, it skewed it that things were good, but it still meant that things started making sense. Because all of a sudden, a rhino wasn't made out of paper in Horus Heresy. Most stuff couldn't kill it, which was an incredible, like... Because obviously back in 6th and 7th edition, every gun that anyone carried was strength 6. It's like everyone had strength 6 coming out of their eyeballs. It was mental. Strange.
Well, I guess it shows that Horus Heresy shows that 7th edition wasn't that bad a rules as a rules book. It was stuff on top of the codexes that just made it not work. And I guess, inherently, if you're doing Space Marines versus Space Marines, you do have a fair bit of balance just from that alone, because you don't have any of the more crazy obscure stuff. It does show that it can work as a thing.
Yeah, there's a very popular way of playing Horus Heresy where it's just infantry only, and then the only vehicles you're allowed are rhinos, and you're allowed like 2 dreadnoughts, and that's it. But they still play like 2,000 point games.
Really, with all infantry.
All infantry, and I kind of think that's how Heresy should be.
So true, because that's how it was done early days.
Yeah, when you read the books and stuff, it's just massed infantry battles on planets, basically. And
I think that was
about that.
I sort of feel like it would have been fun to have gotten in on Horus Heresy when it first came out, because it would have been just that, but your armies would grow and progress as the storyline goes on. So straight away you've got like a rhino and a bunch of infantry and a character, and that's probably all you can get. And then eventually the Contemptor Dreadnoughts come along, and then all the other kind of cool, crazy stuff comes along down the line. So you get this nice like progression.
I mean, the Heresy range more or less started with the Contemptor Dreadnought. That was pretty much the beginnings of it, as far as I can remember. Like, they had the old Mark III and the old Mark IV armor sets for Marines, but those were just sort of done as Marine variants. But yeah, it wasn't really till the Contemptor started to hit the shelves late 2000 sort of 9 time. I think the Contemptor came out, and that was really where it like changed everything and started. Obviously the guys at Forge World started to see that, crikey, we're selling a lot of Contemptors here, we should make more stuff, and then it all just sort of like went boop, 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 and then obviously it just became what it was. But I think also as well, early doors with Heresy as a range, Forge World, believe, and this is just a statement based on what I was hearing at the time and what I'm sort of assuming, but they were probably still looking at it much like they do in some ways today, where it's like, well, this is a complementary range to 40k, so we are still focusing on the vehicles, and we are still focusing on the specialized dreadnoughts, and we are still focusing on sort of more generic Space Marine stuff that anyone can kind of sprinkle into their existing armies. But it's exciting, man. I mean, I think that's the thing. I think you know, I am currently going through the process of acquiring a bunch of Horus Heresy stuff because I absolutely love the new Dark Angels range. So that is a thing that is happening. But yeah, I've never intended to play Horus Heresy with that range of minis. I just really love the look of the army and just have to own it. But you never know. I mean, Joe was toying around with the idea of doing Heresy, weren't you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm always toying around with the idea of doing Horus Heresy. It's just the physical cost of getting into it from in the beginning, which is always the downside. Because like there are a few armies which you can do, which you can just do all in the plastics. Like you could just do like an Imperial Fists army, or you could do like an Alpha Legion army, because those armies are just inherently just all infantry. When you look at like the exciting legions, where you get to have all the cool units and stuff, then it gets expensive.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Because like I'm doing like my weird like successor chapter for White Scars at the moment, and I'm listening to The Last Wall for the Horus Heresy books, and I'm like, I would really love either a White Scars army or a Custodes army for Horus Heresy, because they would be awesome. But those are the armies where it's very, very expensive.
No, absolutely, mate. Makes absolute sense. Right, I've just realised that we have already talked for about 20 minutes, and we haven't even done the talking about what we're doing on the show or called out our latest 5-star review. So let's do the 5-star review thing first, and then we'll talk about what's on the show, and then we'll get on with it, because now this is likely to be a half-hour long intro segment, which is a first for us. We've crept close, but never done it before, and me explaining that isn't going to help anything at all. So 5-star review. James BT _ has said, I wish I were as handsome as Joe and had a voice as smooth as his. It's a good show too. And that 5-star review is one that we obviously very, very grateful for. Thank you, James BT _ and to say the customary thank you for the 5-star review, here is the handsome and smooth Joe with his thank you.
Thank you, Mr. BT. I appreciate it, and I hope in my heart, and I probably know in the real truth, that you are just as smooth and handsome as I am. In voice, obviously not smooth as a person, like you've been shaved and waxed like an eel, kind of like sliding around. But thank you. Continue to love us, and hopefully we will get to see you in person one day to hear your smoothness. Thank you. I just felt like I had to say the word smooth a lot then.
Well, exactly. I
kind of locked in on that word, and then I was like, this is all I can say now.
I remember in the early years of like getting into public speaking and doing all that kind of nonsense. I remember I was at like college, and I had to do like some stand-up speech, and for some reason the word plucky would never leave my mind. It's strange how that works, isn't it? It's like I've never really ever used the word plucky in general communications, but yeah, everything was plucky that day.
Yeah.
But today everything is smooth. Thanks to James BT _ What a boy. Yeah. Anyway, on the show today, we're going to talk about the previews first and foremost. So the good people of Warhammer community did a preview, and we talked about it. That was a thing. If you've listened to any of the previous us talking about the previews, expect that kind of thing. But overall, I think the preview was pretty reasonable this time around. So that was a thumbs up on that one. And then we also talk about the Deathwatch rules that got released in White Dwarf. So for any of you that haven't checked out White Dwarf, Deathwatch have now a fancy selection of new rules. And we're going to talk about those. And generally speaking, we were pretty happy with them. Spoilers. But that's it, guys. That's the episode 47 of Lookout Sir 40k podcast. We hope you enjoy it. We're going to transition now and move on to talking about the 40k previews and other things that the good people of Warhammer community showed. So we hope you enjoy. Woo! Hello, everybody. In this part of the podcast, we're going to be talking about the latest Warhammer preview event that took place over the tinterwebs, online, using the marvellous marvel that is modern comms. The good people of Games Workshop have been able to consistently update us on things that they're doing, or not, because they're still not open for business. But hey, what can you do? Joining me in this segment is Phil. Hey, Phil.
Hey, how's it going?
There you go. Going well, man. Going well. Phil informs me that there is a lawnmower doing the rounds in his local area. So if you hear the menacing, hum of machinery made for cutting, that's not Phil doing anything malicious. That's simply someone mowing their lawn. Isn't that right, Phil?
Oh, for sure. And if it's the sound of paint pots or rummaging plastic, we all know it's Joe.
That's a lie. That's a lie. And anyway, you made that come across as if that lawnmower doing the rounds is actually coming to claim people. Like, if you hear the sound of it, like, Phil's time is short.
That's true. That's true. It's like one of those horror stories that you told round the campfire in the old Cub Scouts back in the day. The tale of the lawnmower man.
Yeah.
Which then just turned out to be that really awful CG film from the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
I never watched that.
You never watched The Lawnmower Man?
No.
It's famous for having a weird computer-generated sex scene.
Oh.
So, I'm surprised
that... So Joe's on it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, it doesn't hold up. It didn't hold up at the time, but it definitely doesn't hold up now. The sorts of computer-generated sexual content that's out there in the world far surpasses that was created by The Lawnmower Man in whenever it occurred.
Yes.
And leave it at that, I suppose. Yeah. But there you go. How are you doing, Joe? You all right, mate? Having a good time?
I'm all right. I woke up today and I was like, with the best intentions, I was like, I'm going to do some painting today. And then I sat down at my desk and then I was like, no. So I've been kit bashing today.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, anyway, so the previews. These ones went out on Saturday, the 18th of April. And as is always the way with these reveals, they mostly talk about other things before getting around to Warhammer 40,000. Almost as if Warhammer 40,000 is their strongest performing intellectual property and something that the majority of the people viewing this are tuning in to learn about, thus using it at the end of the show to bait people into sticking around and learning about other things. Although on this occasion, spoilers, most of the stuff that they updated us on was pretty exciting. So as is usual, we're going to relatively brush over stuff that isn't 40k related. But starting out, we had a massive reveal, pun intended, of the new Warhammer Age of Sigmar Giants, the Sons of Biamat. Not Biamat, Biamat. And these things aren't called Giants anymore, are they? They've got some new Age of Sigmar name for them, right?
The Sons of Biamat, I don't know. Gargants?
Are they Gargants? Is that what they're called now? So it's not like Giants, because obviously they can't, claim ownership of the word.
Yeah, it towers over the regular Gargant. So I'm going to assume that they're just big Gargants.
Is that the wording they've used? The regular Gargant?
Well, they use the word, it's a new army made up of Gargants.
Well,
and then they talk about the classic Gargants. And, these ones are Mega Gargant variants.
Oh, I see. So there is still viability in the old kit, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
So these are not, these are not then going to, Hall of Fame, if you will, or Legends, the old Gargants. This is just an add-on to the Gargant range.
Yeah, I imagine, like these will be like your HQs and your specials.
Yeah, your Knight Castellans, if you will.
Yeah, and then the regular boy will just be...
They'll become your troops, will they?
Your
battle line.
Yeah.
Your regular knights.
This army is potentially going to be absolutely bonkers, isn't it? But will it be better than Slanesh in Age of Sigmar? I don't know enough to know. Are Slanesh even still good in Age of Sigmar? Anyone up to speed on that?
I don't know. I didn't really keep up to date with it. Like, I've got my Age of Sigmar army in the box ready to be built. but that's about as much attention as I've paid.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I've painted a squig. That's the full extent of what I've done. But what's our opinion on these gigantic giants, these big old gargants? I mean, I think it's reasonable to assert that when we first saw all of these while watching the live stream together, we were universally very pleased with them. I think they look pretty amazing. Would you not say so?
100%. My favourite, I'm going to be honest, right? And this is obscure movie reference, by the way. The executioner guy?
Oh, yes.
There, he looks very similar to the executioner from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, as played by Jimmy Nail.
That is absolutely accurate. Yeah, he has got a certain Jimmy Nail quality to him, doesn't he?
He does, and I kind of feel like that's like a nod to him.
Do you think so? Do you think they went for Prince of Thieves as their main inspiration?
Because obviously it's Robin Hood from Nottinghamshire, so hence Warhammer World.
I mean, it's entirely plausible. Did the executioner in Prince of Thieves go topless though?
In our minds.
In our minds. Did you imagine his nipples would appear quite as perky? Sorry, as our giant here.
No, mine was more hairy. I had to go only by personal reference.
I suppose, obviously, that is one of the more interesting qualities of the giants, isn't it? They're not very hairy, are they?
No, they shave in the morning, in Spartacus.
Do you think that's the thing, that they just shave, or do you think these giants don't grow any hair?
I don't know. I like to think that there's like a big bearded one. We've all watched BFG.
Well, there is a bearded one. He has a beard, but still no body hair.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing. Obviously, the hair is exclusively restricted to their heads.
Bit strange.
Maybe it's just really difficult to mould. Because otherwise, if they moulded it on, they'd look like just beastmen, wouldn't they? Just big old beastie.
Maybe it's going to be a Forge World upgrade kit.
Yeah.
What, extra hair? A Chester Merkin.
Chest Merkin, as it were. Or maybe there's an opportunity there for one of the third-party companies. Chest hair.
I mean, it's not difficult to make chest hair out of green stuff, though. So
it sounds incredibly difficult. How would you go about making? I mean, I suppose would you just sort of fashion an overall tuft as opposed to a light sprinkling?
To try. If you're doing like stubble, that would be quite hard to do and you'd almost be better off just painting that on as a sort of shade of the skin. If you want to do a big sort of head of hair or chest of hair, you could sculpt that on relatively easily. Just get a ball of green stuff and then use a little, like a needle, and just pull it all down. And that's sort of how you go about creating fur. So
you could fashion like a Zangief-esque like triangle tuft on their chest.
Yeah, I think so. A bit like the scene they've amended in Splash on the Disney Plus channel. If you've heard of this.
I haven't seen this. What occurred in Splash?
Basically, there's a scene where the lady is running into the water, and I think you sort of see her bum, or see a bit of up the leg shot when she dives in. Ooh. So to solve that, what they've done is they've sort of fashioned like a wig extension to the bottom of her hair to like cover her bum up. But it's so poorly done. It just looks really weird.
It looks like they've just stapled a shaggy rug to her bum.
Yeah. So that's what you could do with some green stuff, basically. A shaggy rug.
There you go. Potentially better than the modern day special effects that have been added to Splash. I wonder what the budget was that Disney Plus set aside to put that edit into place.
Probably £10 to feed an intern for his lunch.
That's it.
I imagine.
That's it.
I do think the kits are really cool. I think they've also done a very clever job of hiding the fact that they all use the same leg. Because I said, you could have all three in an army and it wouldn't really be noticeable because they all look very different. So they do all look different, but actually the legs are all exactly the same posed.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I always hate about these kind of big kits, where there is a repeating visual part to it. I think this one's probably very well hidden and the least obvious, whereas if you get the Dracoffs, some of those other bigger units in Age of Sigmar, where they're literally the same thing. and there's no posability in them whatsoever. So at least you get 3 decent variants out of this.
Yeah, we saw it with the Illuminef mountain giant goatmen things, didn't we? Where it's literally all identically posed. It's just the head and the shoulders and the weapons change. So yeah, there is a little bit more of a sort of diverse approach to this. So I suppose as well, though, when you look at like the Imperial Knight kits, which is obviously a reasonable comparison for this, with the Imperial Knight kits, obviously because it's all mechanical constructs, it's relatively easy for you to convert that and chop it up and, you know, muck around with the posing of it, because ultimately it's all mechanically, and it's very much a case of, well, here's the big knee joint bit, I can probably just reshape that a little bit. Whereas obviously with, you know, flesh and bone, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to resculpt the legs.
For sure. Yeah, you'd effectively have to do a whole new piece, really. And that's why they do it, because it would basically be like a whole new sprue or two, because you'd have to have brand new legs and things like that, and probably have to redo the whole thing. So I get why they've done it. It's very sort of well hidden, I think, visually, with all the extra bits on them.
But I think they are absolutely gorgeous miniatures. I mean, if you can even call them miniatures at this point, because they're obviously going to be quite tall fellows. But no, I think they're really, really nice kits. And I think the variety and the options within them are pretty incredible. And certainly, if it's possible for me to add one of these to my ongoing destruction force of Gloomspite kits that I'm building, I might well do so.
Apparently, everyone can take one. As a mercenary option, yeah. I don't know how I'd add one to my witch elves, though. That would just look a little bit weird.
Well, it depends if it's going to actually be witch elves by the time you actually get to finishing it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, there's still plenty of time for you to change your mind.
Well, I know, because there's a bit in a minute, which is the reason why I'm staying.
Oh, yes, of course. Spoilers ahead. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, there you go. New giants. Aren't they pretty? Yes, they are. Moving on. Blackstone Fortress, everybody. Now, going back to the time where we saw this on the live stream, there was a collective ooh and ah about the possibilities of what we could be seeing out of this Blackstone Fortress update. And not to say that we were disappointed when we obviously collectively realised it's a bigger version of the old Spindle drone. But yeah, a bigger version of the Spindle drone. What's the vibe on that one, gents?
I really like it. I'm a big fan of the new Spindle drone model. I think if it comes with kill team rules, I think that'd be a lot more exciting, because I'm not saying that Blackstone Fortress is bad. I just didn't really enjoy playing it. But I think if I had like a more committed group locally to play it, then maybe I would. But I think if you could have like one of these and then like 10 of the little Spindle drones, but in a multitude of poses, you could have quite a cool mini game involved then. Because it's the thing that lets Spindle drones down is that they're all the exact same pose, and their rules are a bit meh. But I do like the idea of having a like War of the Worlds-esque Spindle drone army.
I think that's the thing with Blackstone Fortress, though, isn't it? It's like, you know, obviously it's I'm going to go out on a limb and assume it's probably one of the most successful Warhammer Quest releases they've done. I think Silver Tower definitely did well for its time, but given that it was Age of Sigmar-esque, it probably didn't necessarily hit the same kind of chords that 40k Blackstone Fortress achieves. But regardless, I think, as a game, I definitely enjoyed it less than I enjoyed Silver Tower. And Silver Tower itself I enjoyed less than, old Hero Quest / Warhammer Quest, because, again, there's some really beautiful simplicity to the old Quest game mechanics. And although, obviously, something like Blackstone Fortress can and does offer new and exciting options to people seeking to, have more depth and have more, grand RPG mechanics and adding in all these layers, I did often find myself just losing track of everything that's going on. Like, oh, the ship is giving me this upgrade, and then this is... and then, like, the whole sequence of putting stuff in the order of which they occur. Like, you know, there was a simple genius to the heroes go, and then the dungeon master goes. I mean, obviously the whole priority thing is nice, but anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Miniature-wise, I think it's a beautiful miniature. I think it would look incredible on any table. I just don't think the rules are... Well, has anyone seen... They haven't released any rules for this, have they?
No.
So, yeah, I mean, are those... Because obviously either side of its sort of central body part, it's got like weird like flappy arm bits that are coming out that look like they're covered in guns. Is that what we're going to be dealing with there? A thing covered in guns, or are those just weird suction cuppy like, sensor things?
I think it's guns. Like these are like the defense, like the proper defense platforms. For the Blackstone Fortress. So I can imagine that these guys will be quite well armed. Because the thing with the original Spindle drones was that they were all they get more powerful the more you kill. Whereas I think this one will probably just be powerful from the word go.
No, I don't doubt. I suppose obviously as well, I'll be interested to see what these guys sort of add to the overarching kind of mission of Blackstone as well. I mean, again, it's nice to see more minis. I mean, I think, you know, Blackstone has had some really cool additions to the range, and I think this is definitely one of them. To Joe's point, if you could use them in a kill team, that would be pretty cool to have a drone kill team.
They said that in the preview kind of chat thing afterwards, that like this installment is one of the most important installments for like the storyline of 40k in general.
Oh wow, okay.
Well, I got the impression they said it was the last expansion for Blackstone Fortress.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I think it's meant to be the end story.
Yeah. So something's happening with this Blackstone Fortress that's going to affect the main story of the game, I imagine. Then.
Yeah, I mean, it might be, you know, the Blackstone Fortress wakes up, or it might be, you know, you conquer it for a particular faction, and then it's going to appear in some of the story for whatever edition is going to be coming next.
Well, indeed, right? I mean, there's all these fabulous clues, aren't there, to the inevitable announce of 9th edition now. The Blackstone has come to an end, and there's some kind of narrative thing that's going to do a big thing, and obviously Psychic Awakening is ramping up as well, so yeah, very exciting. But anyway, there you go. Look, I mean, it's Blackstone Fortress. It is still 40k, but it's probably not the most interesting version of 40k for people like ourselves who love the more traditional tabletop side of things.
I mean, the other interesting thing about this is, because we talked about it when it got revealed, is the original versions of the Spindle drones were all available for 40k because they have the unaligned faction keyword, so you could take them, but they just weren't very good rules. Now, if this also comes out and gets a sort of unaligned data sheet that anyone can drop in, I mean, there's a good chance that there'd be, you know, might have half decent rules, or deliberately not decent rules so they don't appear in tournament play, for example. But it's like some cool models then that you could add to any army.
Well, with the unaligned keyword from the Blackstone Fortress range, you could start to look at some really interesting things. If this was an unaligned HQ choice, potentially, then that unlocks a lot of potential in the unaligned keyword realm, because that's been one of the main issues with unaligned is that it doesn't really have an HQ option. It's all elites, or it's basically all elites, really. Maybe there's a heavy support fast attack in there that I'm not thinking of, but yeah, it's one of those things. So if they did add in, like, if this was an unaligned HQ, well, all of a sudden you can start to actually think about, I actually could take a detachment of big spindle and little spindles, and then maybe some worms, all the old worms, and do some other stuff with it as well, which would be quite cool. So yeah, you know, it's got potential for sure. I look forward to seeing its rules when they eventually get around to releasing this in God knows when time. But yeah, very, very cool. So the next thing, again, being brutally honest, is a Warcry related thing, and Warcry has never necessarily normally been a system that we here on the Lookout Sir 40k podcast have overly cared about. We love the minis. It's reasonable to assert that Warcry has consistently had beautiful miniatures, but the game, not so interested. But, again, keeping in the tradition of beautiful miniatures, they have unveiled the first of the elf faction within the world of Warcry, which is the what they call the Shadow Stalkers. There's the words. And Joe was especially excited by these, weren't you, Joe?
I was very excited because these are 3 of a much larger kit. So this is part of a much larger warband.
And are these are elves or are they humans still?
They're elves.
They are dark elves, essentially.
They're dark elves.
Because everything else in Warcry up to this point has been humans, right?
No, because everything officially released by the sort of the new warbands, yes, but then they released expansion packs for every other kind of race. So your Stormcast Eternals, your Seraphon, your Dwarves, and all of that. They've all had access to be played in Warcry.
Okay.
What makes this special is it's the first non-chaos faction. Because all the other factions that have been in Warcry are all chaos.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, well, they sort of talked about it, where they were implying that the setting is going to change and that the original Warcry is all set sort of in the 8 points. And then they sort of alluded to the fact that the scene is changing, which explains why these other people are around. But then, I don't know, it sort of felt like they double backed and then maybe talking about the 8 points again. I didn't quite get it all.
Yeah, but these models are all based on the kind of like the dark elves that were kind of thing. And they're very dark elf assassin-y, crossed with what they called the like the Spectre guys. What are they called? Shades.
The Shades.
There were Shades. So there's a guy with 2 like repeater hand bows, which are very similar to like the Shade / Corsair look. And then you've got one guy who's got like this cool wispy cloak that's like covering himself up. Yeah. But these are all perfect model conversion. I'm going to get 2 boxes basically. One box will be for my Age of Sigmar army. I'll have to do them as they are, and the other ones will get converted up. So the main character person with the pointy hat, lady or man, we're not sure yet, because you've got a crown on, and that's normally the witch elf stuff. So she'll probably become a succubus or an archon. And then the cloaky crossbow people will probably get turned into mandrakes.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm very excited about this release.
I mean, I like the fact as well with these that they've kind of kept the some of the visual cues from like early Silver Tower stuff as well, with the the Mist Walker or whatever she was called.
Yes.
In as much as she was an elf sorceress that had the kind of glass mask similar to this one, the whole kind of full face visor that they seemingly going for. It's almost like GW saw that everyone running Drakari kept using the Reaver Jetbike head for all their conversions and all their elder models, because it was the coolest helmet you could get. So it's almost like they looked at that and went, we should probably do more of these. And I think this one looks amazing. I mean, all 3 of them look really great. And I think having new conversion possibilities for the Drakari range is massively important. Equally, you could very easily see opportunities with this for Harlequins. I look at the guy with the 2 crossbows, for example, and think that would become a solitaire very, very easily, which would be super cool. I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head what I would do with the person with the flowing cape that they're kind of holding up to their face. But again, you can very easily see potential for these within 40k. And also, obviously, it's just really nice to see more expansion on the Dark Elf stuff that they're looking into for Age of Sigmar. Because if there's one thing Age of Sigmar needs, it's another elf army. Am I right?
100%. Well, I think this is more of an expansion on the Dark Elves, as it were. I think GW sees that they are a really, really popular army. And I think they're just going back and covering the gaps that they've left, which is a good idea.
Exactly. But great conversion potential for 40k players, which is always a good thing. Moving on with that topic, we also were revealed another Lumineth character, which during the live stream felt like a very random instance because it kind of just sort of happened. It was like, we're talking about Warcry, but here's an Age of Sigmar model.
I think it popped up by accident.
You think it popped up by accident?
Yeah, I think that it was queued to be announced, and then whoever was in charge, because they're like, oh, hello, there's a lady elf here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just on the next slide, and they might have just accidentally gone forwards.
Yeah.
It was just those two chatting for the whole time anyway, so it didn't make too much difference. It's not like the previous one where they were getting different people on from different parts of the company to chat.
Yeah, true. But yeah, I mean, I like the pose of this of this mini. I can see potential for certain elements within conversion. I'm not in love with these constant crescent moon headdresses that the Lumineth seem to keep getting. It's probably my least favourite piece of them. And speaking as someone who has assembled and tried to use a Yvrain for gaming purposes, these sorts of fiddly headdresses often, if not always, never really ever survive a trip to the tabletop. But you never know, maybe this one will be slightly more sturdy. But yeah, I think, again, good conversion potential, but yeah, not a mini that in and of itself I'm massively impressed with. I mean, the whole kind of veiled face thing is kind of cool, but yeah, I don't know. It's not really, it's not massively working for me. What do you think, Phil?
The head with the veil and the crown of leaves is by far the best part of the model, and I'd be quite tempted just to lift that off onto something else. The kind of chalice with the smoke is like a cool item that you could easily swap into something, especially like the Sisters of Battle St. Catherine base, because you've got something similar there. But yeah, as a model on itself, I think the bit that's throwing me off is the sort of extra bits coming out of her waist with little tassels on, and the feet just sort of that whole bottom half isn't really working, and then the top half's got a lot of stuff going on. I mean, it's trying to all give you a sense of movement and wind. But it's like you've got the smoke, the veil, and then you, like I said, you've got the crest at the top. Yeah. It's just like a lot of stuff all in one place.
It looks like she should be pulling some piece of like farming equipment, like one of those old contraptions they used to put on the shoulder of horses to move, plows or whatever. It's got that kind of vibe to it. It's not especially brilliant. But what do you think, Joe? I mean, again, conversion possibilities at least?
Oh yeah, so to start off with, the paint job on this model is incredible. The guy who painted the face on that thing is a pure genius. So I've been playing around with this, toying around with this idea for having like a command barge on my Drakari. I needed someone to sit in like the throne, so the throne from the old Vect barge, and I quite like the idea of having like a female Arkan sat in it, and I quite like the idea of that head on her, like a veiled like weeping lady kind of look, and then the rest of the body I could imagine like is the beginnings of like a good spirit seer maybe, or something, like get rid of the weird moon hat thing, put a normal like Farseer or Spirit Seer head on it, or even a bear head. Replace the chalice arm with like a staff.
When you say bear head, you obviously mean a normal helmetless head as opposed to the head of a bear.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Just clarifying.
Yeah. And then replace the chalice with like a cool wizardy type stuff or something, and then go from there. Basically, I think.
Yeah, I think for me, I think you're absolutely right in the sense of, I mean, obviously head swap, hand swap. I was thinking actually it might be more interesting if you were to somehow like craft a witch blade that she's holding to her chest, to have like the witch blade kind of run through the middle of the mini, and then just have the hand out to the side just be that. Because actually what I was thinking is you could repose it so as the head is facing towards where the chalice is, and then you could do like a open palm as if like casting. So like the idea of like more of a kind of fluid up on a rock, kind of firing out smite or mind bullets or what have you. I thought that could look quite cool as an overall sculpt. The thing is with the issue with using this from a craft world perspective is that it'd be very difficult to find a barefooted craft world person in the world of 40k. But again, that's a small semantic thing.
One of the slightly more eccentric ones. The thing is that I really like the bases that come on all the Lumineth stuff. And I bought Tim's army off Eldar army off him. I was going to rebase all of it, and I was going to kind of get ready to do that. And then I've seen all the bases that come with the Lumineth, and I'm like, oh, I kind of really want all of these now.
Yeah. Well, the way they've painted the Lumineth bases as well makes it look very Summoner's Rift from League of Legends. Again, I appreciate neither of you two will probably get that reference, but it's got a very, very interesting kind of almost sort of, very interesting kind of color scheme that they've done with it, and almost it just looks really fantastic. I think they've knocked it out of the park on the basis for the Lumineth, if nothing else. It's like they need to find a way of just selling these separately for them, right? Or do
the thing is that all the molded bases that they've done with models for both AOS and 40k recently have been amazing. Like all the Shadespire bases, amazing. All the Pushfoot bases that come with the Stormcast and the Nighthorns, all incredible. But they need to start selling them separately, because the ones that they sell separately in the big packs are awful.
Yeah,
but they're really terrible. But they don't even look like they do on the box, because like on the box the detailing is like super like crisp and tight and nice. And like all the dirt looks like it's like kind of like glued on sand and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When you open it, it looks like it's expanded in the heat, and it just looks a little bit poor.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. I agree. Oh well, there you go. So yeah, it looks alright. It's got potential. Moving on, we also now have a brand new Blood Bowl team. Now, I wasn't entirely sure if Snotlings had never had a Blood Bowl team. I kind of feel like once upon a time in history there was a Snotling Blood Bowl team, but regardless of whether there was or there wasn't, it never looked this good. This is amazing. And as our resident Blood Bowl fanboy, Phil, what was your opinion on the Snotlings?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of them. They look really cool. I'm a big fan of Stunties, like I've got a Halfling team. The Goblin team looks great. These look pretty fantastic too. They're very sort of almost early style. They sort of like hark back to like the early editions of Warhammer Fantasy, it seems. Like especially with the like little pump wagon, because I don't think you've seen one of those in Warhammer Fantasy for a really long time. I could be wrong. But yeah, I and as you were saying about teams, like you can get them. I'm pretty sure it's them you can get in the Ogre team, unless I'm mistaken. I'm sure it was them that you can get them with. But obviously, you've got to take ogres as well.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is with the Snotlings is the amount of character that they've injected into every single one of these sculpts is just incredible. There's obviously the standout guys like the fella dressed in a wizard uniform, which I assume is not a specific role. It's just a bloke who happened to like dressing like a wizard, although maybe they're intended to be used as an actual wizard that you can obviously have in Blood Bowl, which would be totally legit and reasonable.
I mean, it depends on how they do the positionals, because with halflings originally you only had one position and it was like halfling hopeful, and then in this edition they decided to add on more because basically they kind of readily admitted that the teams that they loved the most when they were making Blood Bowl originally got much more positionals, and some were just rushed. So goblins sort of got like one and a bit because they got loads of special weapons. But yeah, halflings just got one. So they've given them more, and it would make sense that they've given these guys more than just one. It could be, though, that you do just have one, because then you've also got a pump wagon. But I wouldn't be too surprised if a couple of these... I don't know, weirdly, the wizard one looks like a coach, and the guy tooting the horn looks like a cheerleader.
Yeah.
So... potentially they're designed to be both players, but if you want to run them as like kind of coach and staff models, you could do.
Yeah.
Likewise, I think the one that's riding a rock that's got the
it's fungus.
Fungus. The one that's riding a big fungus is probably more likely to be a specific thing than the others. But I mean, who knows?
I mean, the guy on the stilts is absolutely brilliant, isn't he? I mean, just...
He's like their runner equivalent, so he's faster than everyone else.
As you reckon?
Yeah, they said in the talk.
Oh, nice.
Did they? Oh, nice. Yeah. I mean, if I was to ever go on and do my Grot Tank army, I think I would have to buy these just as additional models to decorate the tanks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, man, these guys are spectacular. I mean, what do you think of them, Joe?
Oh, they're beautiful models. I think people now who are running like goblin hordes for their 40k armies need to kind of invest in these. Because they are awesome.
I mean, again, noting that these guys are going to be noticeably smaller than Gretchen. Or Grots.
Are they, though?
Yes.
Because obviously they scale up Blood Bowl.
Yeah, they do, but there's already a Goblin team in Blood Bowl.
Yeah, so I imagine that these will be the same size.
No, they're smaller.
No, yeah, so Snotlings are meant to be a lot smaller than Gretchen or goblins, should I say.
Sorry, Phil. I tried to ride it out, but your audio is gone well tinny.
Oh,
is that just for me, or is that you as well, Joe?
It was me as well.
Yeah, you'd gone robotic on us.
Robot.
Time here to suck
do you want me
your
to
blood.
re-say that again, then?
Yeah, so we were saying that they were smaller or something. I can't even remember. Yeah, say it again.
Well, I imagine most of the teams are all done on 32mm bases. So judging by that, they're probably going to be a bit smaller maybe than the current gobbos and halflings. I mean, probably maybe not by much, because they've got to make them a bit bigger so you can see them and you've got the detail in them.
Yeah.
For sure.
But it's still an incredible range, though, right? I mean, regardless of what size they end up being, I think this is the sort of stuff that for the collectors, the painters, the converters, there's going to be a lot of interest in picking these guys up to sprinkle into your armies in just all sorts of places. I mean, Snotlings can just appear anywhere, You could theoretically have a Space Marine army and have a few Snotlings, on people's bases. Just like, oh yeah, there's just some Snotlings for no reason at all. I mean, obviously it probably wouldn't fit the theme very well, but at the same time, it is all inherently of the same universe, sort of. So why not, eh? But no, I mean, just gorgeous. I think it's a great looking team. And has stoked some enthusiasm amongst us for getting back into playing some Blood Bowl again soon, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
There you go. You're gonna be playing the Dark Elves still in that one as well, Joe?
I am, yeah, because I want to use some of their models for conversions as well. I want to make so they're runners and they're blitzers and stuff. I want to convert into Trueborn. I know Trueborn aren't a unit anymore, but I like the idea of having some like up armored Cavalite warriors knocking about.
I mean, it sounds like a fantastic idea, really, mate. I think the Dark Elf like team in Blood Bowl is absolutely gorgeous, and again, another great opportunity for you to look at some opportunities for things like Trueborn and other stuff. I think good on you. All right, cool. Well, moving along, we're getting on to the historical side of 40k, and that is Horus Heresy. And for Horus Heresy, they have unveiled the wondrous Sol Tarvitz, which, if you're not already familiar, is quite an important character within the wondrous world of Horus Heresy. Wouldn't you say so, Joe?
Yes, he is the one that blows the horn originally on Horus to inform everyone else that he'd gone bad.
That's the one. Yeah. And to celebrate that, they've given him what is actually quite an amazing miniature. But what's becoming more and more interesting with the paint jobs, it's starting to sort of feel, certainly with the word bearers that we saw the other week, and now Sol Tarvitz as well, that clearly someone in Forge World is doing the painting that may or may not have been a GW or heavy metal painter previously, because we are definitely starting to see more of a GW style paint job on what has otherwise been more of a sort of grittier version of painting that the Forge World team has done historically. I mean, Phil was the man who made this observation, so I sort of stole his thunder a bit by saying it, but
yes, swine.
I know, I apologise, but what's your thinking on that, Phil? I mean, what do you think's going on here?
Well, you can see, for example, there's not an ounce of weathering powders on this model, which it sort of says it all, really. But it was from the last preview. We were looking at them going, oh, they look like plastic. And this guy looks like plastic, but probably isn't going to be plastic. He's going to be resin, because that's what Horus Heresy is. And I sort of then twigged that I think the reason why we think it looks more like plastic is because it's been painted in an heavy metal style as opposed to a Forge World style. And the Forge World style was always much more dirty and grim and sort of realistic, and used things like weathering powders on the base, whereas this is much more kind of a classic GW sort of box art style. So it does look good, but yeah, it's just sort of too clean. And it's got the tiniest of battle damage on the leg, and that's like about it, which is a bit odd.
I described to someone the other day is that Horus Heresy always looks like it should go through the World War II filter for like films and games. Like it's supposed to be grittier and brown, and everything should have a coat of dust on it, you know. Like when if you ever watched like Band of Brothers, like that's intentionally made to look grainy and real, and that's how I've always kind of looked at the Horus Heresy range. Like it's supposed to be like washed out.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Likewise, I think that's the thing. It's like, you know, it undoubtedly is going to be a great mini. I think the sculpt on it is actually one of the better ones. I think the sort of all the kind of over the top aspects of his armor and things all look really good. I think it's got potential to be quite a cool figure, this one. Also, I mean, again, you can't really see it, but it looks like he's got some sort of mad gun hanging off of him as well, because you can just see like the he's got a specialist bolt gun. Which has got like the sniper and rending rule on it. So it's a bit more powerful than the usual kind of bolters carried by Marines. That's it. I mean, the thing that's interesting with old Tarvitz is he's obviously not amongst... I mean, he's obviously still an Emperor's Children Space Marine, so he is pretty handy with a sword, but, you know, compared to the likes of... Lucius, he doesn't really stack up in that world, but so it's interesting that they've given him a more diverse weapon set to work with, and It's just cool, man. I mean, it's a cool mini. I like it. I hope they give him a helmeted version, because I always prefer the helmeted versions of these things. But other than that, mate, I think it's great. I mean, and again, if nothing else, it's a really cool mini to add to your Chaos collection potentially, or or maybe look at doing a Emperor's Children Loyalist army in 40k or 30k, whatever takes your fancy. But yeah, I like it, man. I like it a lot. I think it's quite a good one. Certainly enjoy it a lot more than the Word Bearers from the last one. So there we go. And now, moving into the wondrous world of 40k, we saw a lovely video for the new Psychic Awakening. That, given the fact that technically we haven't even been able to gain access to Saga of the Beast yet, is quite an interesting thing. So we're now, 3 Psychic Awakenings deep in terms of announces? You've got Saga of the Beast, something or other Spider, and now this new one, right?
Oh, and you got Engine War.
Oh, is that so? This is is this the 4th one?
Yes, this is I think this is. So you've got Engine. I thought Engine War was supposed to be next.
Possibly,
and then it was Pariah. Then it was War of the Spider.
Oh, so War of the Spider is the 4th one.
Yeah.
Pariah, because again,
So
obviously,
this isn't the last one then, because this one's Pariah.
yes. So this one is Pariah, which means that potentially they're going to unveil more stuff for War of the Spider down the road. But yeah, it's just a weird thing, isn't it? Because obviously by now we probably should have already had Engine Kill, or it should have been coming out like this weekend, I would have assumed, had the normal release schedule been in effect. But regardless of all that, I mean, yeah, look, I mean, Pariah, from what they showed in the video, what they're building up for, it's utilising the 2 minis that they revealed in the last reveal, which was the Harlequin and the Sister of Battle. And they've added to that a new Inquisitor, who is obviously an Order Xenos Inquisitor. What's the name of this Inquisitor? Is it Draxus?
I think so.
Yeah, Kyria Draxus.
There you go. And she is sporting what looks like a beautiful mixture of, elder technologies, which is quite cool. She almost has as well, because I was looking at this again, she has a bit of a kind of Spire type vibe to her with her power fist. So if anyone remembers the Spire gang from Necromunda, there's definitely some visual cues to that, and there was always rumours and lore in literature back in Necromunda that the Spire were wearing equipment that was created for them by Elder. So yeah, this is maybe potentially a nice little nod to some of that stuff as well, potentially. Who could say? But no, it looks, I mean, as Inquisitor minis go, I think it's actually quite nice, although again, I don't like it quite as much as Greyfax. I thought Greyfax was probably a better looking mini overall, but I mean, it's cool to see, a bit more of the Order Xenos and the sort of stuff they get up to. I mean, what's your vibe on it, Joe?
I am a big fan of this model. Obviously, for conversion possibilities, it's going to be an Archon for death. But I like the idea that there's now like a supporting Inquisitor character to go with people like Deathwatch. Because they've got now technically got a thematic alternate leader. And I like the radicalness of this one, because all the other Inquisitors that we've had have all been very Puritan style, and they've got a very but all their armor is ornate and special, but it's all very towing the Imperial line. Whereas this one is quite clearly like you learn from your enemy by acting like your enemy kind of character.
I love the bird creature dinosaur thing that she's got on her power fist as well. I think that looks absolutely fantastic. which is definitely one of the nicer elements of the mini. I mean, Phil, what's your opinion on old Inquisitor Draxus?
I'm sort of still undecided. I think it's going to grow on me, and when I see it in person, I'll probably really love it. Yeah, it's very Xenos-y for Xenos Inquisitor. Obviously, like Eisenhorn is normally traditionally a Xenos Inquisitor, depending on which book, I guess. But rules-wise, he's a Xenos Inquisitor, and he's much more traditional. So this is a bit more out there, which I think is cool. The Power Fist, I think, is probably the best sort of feature to the model. It looks a bit Stormcast Eternal for me in terms of the armor plating. It's like it's meant to be a piece of power armor, but it's like power armor designed by the Elder rather than the Imperium, which I guess is sort of what they're going for. But that sort of throws me off a little bit. It's cool though. I mean, I remember when we first saw this character in the very original animated sort of video for Psychic Awakening, like the launch training. She was just in her robes, and I'm pretty sure back then I was like, oh, I bet this is going to be a playable model because they've got the armor in the distance and they've got this little birdie thing. So it's glad to see that there actually is. It's finally paid off.
Yeah, you called it, Phil.
Oh yes, yeah, and I'm just glad that it is actually. They've sort of teased that sort of Easter egg all the way back then, and that this is like a character. I sort of wish that it was a bit more of an obvious story arc for what's going on with her. So I'll look forward to buying this book almost just to find that out. I presume it's going to come with all the Inquisition rules from the old White Dwarf, which seems a bit odd because obviously the Deathwatch stuff is just in a White Dwarf now.
Yeah,
so it'd be a bit odd that they would then release sort of almost during the Psychic Awakening period the Inquisition rules in White Dwarf, but then also republish them in a Psychic Awakening, unless of course it's not going to be there and they're going to go White Dwarf is the final rules, and then they're just going to have this one character added in. So it'd be interesting to see what they do with that basically.
Yeah, agreed, mate.
And this is like the second plastic Inquisitor, so we've had one from Ordo Hereticus, haven't we? And then
so Grey Fax was Ordo Hereticus,
and then this is Xenos. So hopefully that means that at some point over the next year there'll probably be an Ordo Malleus.
Or was she Ordo Malleus?
I always find they're so similar, those.
I know,
like,
right?
Why make the distinction?
No, she is Hereticus. No, she is. She's much more kind of in line with the Adeptus Sororitas side of things. I'm pretty sure of that. I mean, again, it's cool, and obviously if we do get a Ordo Malleus Inquisitor soon as well, that'll be pretty amazing. I think obviously she's had a very rough time during the Psychic Awakening because she's got some serious bags under her eyes, doesn't she?
She's a bit busy.
She has not been sleeping much. You can see by those are some big bags under her eyes.
Definitely, it's for stress.
Exactly, man. It's hard keeping everything under control during a Psychic Awakening.
It's interesting. There's actually not. Oh, there is one purity silt, and it's on the gun, but that's like the only one.
That's just to signify that this gun is approved. You don't. You don't want to be walking around with that unapproved.
Yeah, true. I mean, I'm really keen to see what the rules are going to be. That would be really interesting to see what they do with this character, because most of the Inquisition ones are just a bit okay, and there's nothing that's been particularly stand out.
I imagine the same will be true of her. She has a shuriken cannon. Oh, not shuriken cannon. Sorry, a shuriken gun. Capo. Thank you, words. And a power fist that will make her strength 6. Ooh, and
a bird that's gonna peck your eyes out for like one mortal wound.
Exactly. That'll be it. That'll be the full extent of it. It'll be a 12-inch range birdie, and that's it. Unless, of course, maybe the bird can link with her, and maybe it flies, and maybe you could measure a distance 12 inches away from the Inquisitor, and then you could draw line of sight as if you were where the bird was or something. Wouldn't that be an interesting mechanic?
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I mean, she's like the sort of heretical version of the guy with the twin-headed eagle. Was it twin-headed eagle? Yeah, it is.
Yeah. You mean Cotiers?
Cotiers, yeah, that's the one. It's like a similar version, but like twisted on its head.
Exactly. You're not a true Inquisitor unless you've got some kind of winged creature hanging out with you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think this screams, as Joe said, like conversion potential more than anything else.
Well, indeed. But I think the thing is with this mini is as great as it is in isolation. The next miniature.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah, please.
Do we think, because obviously this is coming out in Pariah, and she actually looks a lot like a Sisters of Silence, like she's got the old Aquila tattoo that they all have. Do we think that she actually might be a psychic null as well, or am I just going mad and off on one?
Potentially.
Yeah, but she quite clearly isn't a Sister of Silence though, because she speaks quite a bit.
Well, maybe she wasn't.
No, I don't think the Sisters of Silence work like that, mate. I don't think you leave.
You can take a vow.
You can take a vow and then have another vow, is what you're saying.
Well,
is this like Jon Snow? Do you think she died once and came back to life and then went, well, I'm done with the Night's Watch now. I'm off to be king.
I think some of them dropped their vows.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
well, I mean,
the Imperium treated them.
But also, if an Inquisitor comes along and says, "I want you to break your vow and follow me," most of them would, because the Inquisitor sort of overrules everyone.
Wow, I don't know. Aren't like the Sisters of Silence don't they report directly into the Emperor?
Yes,
you'd have to be some hell of an Inquisitor to get him to break over.
But that's how high-ranking an Inquisitor is as well.
I don't think it's the Emperor.
Oh yeah, but they are basically the voice and the authority of the Emperor. Like, there's no one above an Inquisitor except him.
Okay, well, maybe.
I know. I can see a voice of disagreement there.
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I mean, look, it's totally feasible. I suppose it's a fictional world. Anything's possible. But I don't know. I mean, you definitely see some visual cues though. But yeah, she hasn't got the. Obviously, I don't know. Because I don't even know, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. We don't need too many more of those. But yeah, no, fair point, mate. Could be possible. But yeah, as I was going to say, on the topic of a mini that just blows pretty much, a lot of stuff away. I can't think of too many GW 40k miniatures that are as nice as this one. And that is a series of very difficult to pronounce Necron words that describe this crazy spider monster Necron beastie that is sucking out the skin from some kind of priest.
It's Illuminus Caesares.
Oh yes, old Illuminus Caesares. Yes, that's our boy.
He's an existing character.
He is, yeah, but I was never very good with the Necron names. But dear Lord, this is phenomenal, right? Phil, any particular piece that stands out to you initially with this mini, or just the whole thing is just something to see?
It's clearly the soul, flesh, brain sucking out part of the model, like what he's doing to the poor soul on the base. That bit, I think, is a bit that sort of just is the icing on the cake and makes it really stand out.
It's just one of those things that, so rarely within 40k miniatures do we see such a grim realization of the grim dark nature of the 40k universe, and I think this model in so many ways encapsulates all of that. Just the unforgiving brutality of the universe, the idea that there's this guy screaming in agony while this Necron couldn't care less as he's just sort of, going away looking at, I don't know, the data or whatever that's coming out of his genetic code as he flails the skin from his bones. It's utterly horrific, but at the same time just utterly spectacular. It looks like as well you've got a little piece of blackstone up on its shoulder as well, which is quite an interesting additive. maybe something to add to the whole kind of conclusion to the whole Blackstone Fortress thing we were talking about earlier?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. It could be part of Cadia.
Could be part of Cadia. Do you think that's what he'd be carrying around with him?
Well, because obviously the Necrons were at Cadia when it fell, and Trazan the Infinite, whatever it was, the collector guy. He was supposed to be helping them out, and then he just kind of ran away and took a bunch of stuff with him.
Yeah, I think the bit on his shoulder is some Blackstone, I would assume, and then he's got his usual gem stuff in his staff, which I guess isn't Blackstone. But I mean, if you just look at the old model, it's like you can't even compare them.
No.
And there's almost very little which looks the same. I mean, I guess there's a few little nods. Like the staff looks a bit similar. He's got I don't know. He's holding a skull, and there's a guy about to be a skull. But it's not like Fabius Bowl, where they've just taken the same model and gone, let's just reimagine this as just better and more detailed. They've kind of gone, that old one is a bit naff. Let's keep some similarities, but let's just, crank it up to max and do something completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a time, wasn't there, in 6th or 7th edition where everyone wanted this mini because, not this mini, but the one that came before it because of certain rules that he unlocked for you. But yeah, this guy is ridiculous. I mean, what do you think of this, Joe?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's literally beautiful. Everyone wanted him because he could buff a unit of Immortals, I think, every turn.
Yes, that was it.
And giving them you could either give them +1 strength, +1 ballistic skill, or +1 weapon skill, or something like that. Yeah, it's amazing. This is a prime example of what a remake should be.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's so... The paint job really helps, but it's so grim and what you'd imagine a Necron to be in comparison to what some of the models the Necrons already have.
But it's so animated. Most of the Necron models are just very static, and you don't really get a sense of movement, and they're just all floating around. I think the fact that he's sort of interacting slightly with a scenic base, he's got his old leg up on there, like they all do. But it's there's not just the swirl of the blood or the flesh or the soul or whatever it is that's coming out. There's also a little laser beam coming out of the bottom of his staff that's kind of causing this damage in the first place. And there's just a really interesting dynamic pose to the whole thing. It's just an amazing composition. I mean, I was staying there going, it makes me want to do Necrons. Yeah, it's fantastic.
I think the challenge for GW when it comes to the Necron range at the moment is definitely the bog standard warrior, and then creating the synergies that bring it all together, because obviously most people will be painting lots and lots of warriors, although I do kind of feel more and more not that I'm saying they should do away with warrior, but I always sort of feel like the Necron Immortal should transition to being the standard Necron trooper, and then kind of I don't know. I mean, it's the thing with the warrior stat line and other things, especially now that they're scaling up the range so much. I mean, when you look at the size of this guy versus where he was before, what they did with the Triarch Stalkers, but then also the other HQ choices they added, because they brought in that new Cryptek Mini recently. And that Cryptek Mini is so much grander in scale than the one that came before it. So yeah, unless of course you change the Necron Warrior to become more of a kind of horde type army, or not, make it more like the Hormagaunt or the Termagaunt style thing, because. Yeah, I just think I think that's the one thing for me that sort of lets down the Necron range more and more now, is when you see the warrior kits, because they're quite old and they're sort of showing their age. But yeah,
they need to do away with the green rods. So when they remade the Immortals, where the green rods used to go on the original metal ones, they did away with that and put in a molded kind of tube.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything in. So, and a lot of people who remake the Necron Warrior, who like kind of convert it, kind of like put those immortal tubes in to make them fit the rest of the army.
Because the problem with that green rod is it just has like an air bubble in every single one, which to me ruins the immersion. But I also think that kind of plastic glass beyond canopies in vehicles always looks a bit naff because it's not painted. I had a great idea that I was going to do if I was going to do Necrons, and it was to basically spray the rod, just prime it, but then use it's called, I think it's like chameleon paints or color shift paints from Green Stuff World, for example. So depending on what angle you look at it, the tone of the color changes, and I found a really nice sort of green and orange ones that would be potential for that. So you'd have this kind of weird unnatural shine and color shift happening when you look at that model, and I thought that'd be a great effect to do on those Necron rods instead of the sort of clear transparent plastic.
Yeah, that'd be very cool, to be fair, if you could pull that off. But yeah, I just think the Warrior is part of the range that sort of lets it down at this point, although I do understand the relevancy and the importance of the Warrior. I'd just be interested to see how GW continue to kind of evolve the lore and the range around the Crons, because there's just some, I mean, the Necron Overlord mini that they put out in plastic, I can't remember how long ago they did that now, but that Necron Overlord mini is utterly gorgeous. The Cryptek that they released not too long ago now is pretty spectacular, and this guy, I mean, he's now, he's got to be top 5 40k minis, easy, top 5, this guy.
Oh, yeah.
It's stunning, absolutely stunning. And if more Necron characters come along that look like that, I mean, it could be one of the most beautiful ranges in all of 40k.
Yeah, for sure. What the other interesting thing in that video, where like the animated part of it, is they have a little one of the is it sentry pylons that you can see the four drive kits, like the little guns, and then there's loads of these like Necron archways. Now I'm convinced that's going to be a piece of terrain. I know I don't know if Joe disagrees with me, but I know Dan does. But I think that's a little teaser for a piece of terrain that's going to come out with them.
I mean, sorry, Joe, please.
Potentially, right. I think that's more of a grabbing at straws theory than a.
Well, my logic is they almost never draw a piece of artwork that contains something that isn't a mini.
And I mean, to be fair, it hasn't been the first. It wouldn't be the first time that GW has nicked a Forge World piece and folded it into the GW Citadel range.
Well, I don't think that will be a terrain piece. I think the archway thing will be.
Oh, okay.
When Urban Warfare came out, remember Urban Conquest, whatever it was called?
Urban Conquest, yeah.
Yeah. The artwork on that was the two Reavers in front of a large building, and it had some demon engines on it, which no one knew what they were, but everyone was asking what they were. And then was immediately released as the Venom Crawler. Because everyone was like, I want to know what these walkie things are. Like, and then GW released it. So there is some grounds to Phil's madness.
It's true. It is true. But there you go. I mean, yeah, from the Psychic Awakening side of things, 2 really, really great minis, or rather 1 exceptional mini and 1 good mini. But yeah, I mean, just I can't get over how good this Necron looks. It's so cool. I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there thinking about collecting Necron armies, or not thinking about collecting Necron armies, but just buying this guy to paint it and add to their collection, and then potentially off the back of that becoming Necron players themselves, which is, again, I mean, no bad thing, I'm sure, because Necrons have definitely been underrepresented within the hobby. So yeah, amazing work, just phenomenal. Then we have Warhammer Storyforge. They showed off some new imagery from Hammer and Bolter. in which we saw some pictures of some Sisters of Battle. They're quite nice pictures, so that's a plus. It looks really cool. I'm not really sure how much more there is to say about some pictures of Sisters of Battle, but maybe Joe can elaborate.
Nah.
Fair enough. How about
Until
you, Phil?
I see the cool trailer, I'm not fussed.
Fair enough. Phil, any thoughts?
No, it's nice. I like the art style. It's similar to the one in the trailer, but just feels a bit more detailed and a bit more polished. Yeah, it's cool. Looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with that one, basically. Yeah. I think the other thing they talked about on it is that they basically didn't divulge what platform or medium this is all coming on. So it'd be interesting to see if it will be a Netflix series or if it will just come out on Warhammer Community, for example. Yeah. Hopefully it will do well enough and that they, get it pitched and it'll appear on the TV somewhere.
Well, one thing's for certain, Phil, it won't be available for free, will it? You got to pay someone.
No, quite likely, yeah. Because if it's going to be anywhere, it'll probably be somewhere like Netflix or Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
If they just put them all up on YouTube, that'd be amazing. I think, well, I can't see them doing that, but who knows?
They do this thing on Prime Movies or Prime Video, where you can have subscriptions within Prime. So maybe they'll be eyeing up something like that because or they could do it as premieres on Twitch or something. I guess make it part of their Twitch streaming schedule.
Yeah, that's true.
Potentially. All right, cool. Well, then, closing things out, the good people of GW didn't announce that they're reopening their online stores, which is fair enough for them. But they did tell us that we have the opportunity to pre-purchase what would have otherwise been event-exclusive miniatures, that being the Terminator Librarian that we've seen an awful lot of over the last few months. I mean, does anyone have any particular opinions on the Terminator Librarian, bar the fact his arms are a bit weird?
I quite like him.
I like him a lot.
But it would be cool to buy and build and paint. I can't foresee many people using him very often, but he's still nice.
I mean, Terminator Librarians do have a place because obviously they've got the whole, teleport strike, deep strike ability, which is super handy in gaming terms, and also as well, if you were considering running things like Deathwing, there's not a bad idea to throw in some librarian stuff in there as well. But really, where he's probably going to shine most is in all of those Grey Knight armies that should have been, ruling the roost had competitive play been a thing right now. There's definitely use for the guy. But yeah, I mean, nice mini. We'll see what happens with him. I think, I think it'd be quite cool. It would have been really nice had they actually given us the opportunity to buy the Terminator Chaplain. That's the mini I want. That Terminator Chaplain. Can't ever seem to ever get hold of that thing.
Yeah, he's a bit few and far between to get hold of.
Yeah, I don't think they've ever sold the Terminator Chaplain in the UK, have they?
I think it's exclusively held for new store openings.
Yeah, which
we don't get many of those in the UK.
No, we really don't.
Are you being sarcastic?
No, we don't. Do we get many new store openings in the UK?
Oh, actually, yeah. If it's not the store anniversaries, then yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Store anniversaries we're all right for, but new stores never happens.
Yeah. New stores. Some stores had access to these when they changed from like Games Workshop stores to Warhammer stores.
That is true.
But they sold out so quickly, and a lot of them were like, you could only have these if you come into the store, buy it online, and then it gets delivered to the store. You can't get it delivered to yourself.
Yeah, I remember that one was a bit of a barrier to entry. Although I don't think that was specifically for that Chaplain mini. But anyway, regardless, I mean, yeah, it'd be nice if they did the Chaplain because I really like the Chaplain mini. And also, as well, again, speaking for the Grey Knight players, the Terminator Chaplain is an option in the Grey Knight Codex, right? And they even show the limited availability Grey Knight guy as an option, and it's sort of one of those ones where you're a bit like, oh, okay, that's a bit odd. But you can still buy the old resin one, can't you?
Yeah, but he's
still gorgeous, by the way. The old resin Chaplain is really held up.
Yeah.
But he's nowhere near as cool as the plastic one. But anyway, look, the point is there's a plastic Terminator, which is interesting because it's a non-Primaris miniature in the year 2020. Oh my god!
I know, that's probably the most interesting tidbit about that model.
That is essentially it, though, isn't it, when it comes to points about that? But the thing that most people were quite interested in and excited to see was the new Adeptus Sororitas Sisters of Battle mini, based off of the cover art of an old Sisters of Battle Codex. And she is pretty spectacular, wouldn't you say?
Oh, it's beautiful. Model.
Just fantastic. And, I don't want to necessarily elaborate too much on it, but I think, again, just a really cool looking mini and a really cool pose that is definitely going to be a great addition to any sort of Sisters army. Are they saying that this is essentially could represent like a unit sergeant, I suppose? Or what battlefield role would you use this mini in?
I suppose you could have her from a Canoness down, basically.
Do you think she's Canoness worthy though?
I don't know, because they released that Canoness model not long ago, and she was literally just had a bolt gun stood on a plinth.
Yeah, true. I suppose. The Canoness
And the website that she can be used as a highly decorated battle sister superior, or even Celestian.
A Celestian?
A Celestian? Yeah.
I don't know what one of those is.
I don't.
They're like the elite version of the Battle Sisters, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
So that would all make sense.
Yeah, exactly. It looks great. It's a great looking mini. I've already pre-ordered her and the Terminator straight away. I was like, yep, done. No questions asked. Imagine if they reopened the GW store. Oh, the madness I would buy. But as it was, they gave me the option to spend £45 on a Terminator and a Sister of Battle, so I did. There you go. I assume you did the same, Phil.
No, do you know what? I'm saving my money at the moment, so I haven't. It is an amazing model, so I probably would. They haven't really said how long this one's going to be available for.
It's available.
Just during the made-to-order period, so it's just 2 weeks. Yeah. So I might try and pick it up because I think it's a cool mini that would be great for sort of conversion potential. I have no interest in the Librarian, unfortunately. If it was a Primaris one, I'd maybe have given it a look just for my mind tools, but otherwise, no. The other interesting thing about this one is it's in a box called Warhammer Commemorative Series. So it'll be interesting to see if they do more along these lines.
It's in a box?
Well, on the website where you pre-order it and you scroll through it, it implies it's in a box with some artwork. But I wonder if this Warhammer Commemorative Series is sort of what they have been doing with all of these kind of Black Library minis that they've taken from cover art, but they've just not given it a kind of branded name. So, you've got your Eisenhorn and you've got your, not Kane, it was
Sergeant Marbo?
Well, not really him, but you've got the Astra Militarum Commissar, Lady one, that was based on Black Library artwork.
Yeah,
you had your weird one-off Noise Marine, which I guess doesn't tie into Black Library, but they've done a bunch of these sort of one-off models, and I wonder if this is how they're going to be branding them from now on.
Potentially, mate, potentially. Obviously what's interesting is the Terminator doesn't have the same branding, but obviously it's not based on any specific artwork or anything. So, yeah, a commemorative series.
Maybe you've got commemorative series, and then you've got the event-only series.
Yeah. That would seem to make sense.
I mean, if they're looking for suggestions, though, for the commemorative series, I would absolutely love if they could produce a mini based on the Exarch from the 2nd edition Elder book, please.
Put that request in.
That would be a thumbs up.
The one that looks very similar to Waterchops, but isn't Waterchops.
No. It's a Dire Avenger Exarch with a sword held up over its head.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wicked mini. I think actually as well it had like a wrist-mounted shuriken to it as well, which was quite cool. What one would you go for, Joe, of all the old Codex artworks? Which one would you like? Perhaps the Chaos Space Marine from 3rd edition Codex Chaos Space Marine.
What, the one where it was just his head?
Yeah, just his face. Ah! Just a big angry face.
I don't know.
You don't know anymore. It's lost.
Hang on. I'm just looking at my old codexes next to me now. I'm trying to remember the Dark Angels, the old Dark Angels codex.
Which one? The original Dark Angels codex, where it was a big dude with a big sword planted in the ground?
Yeah, there's him.
Although actually no, that wasn't, because that was Angels of Death. Actually, was their 2nd edition book, wasn't it? And that was the old Lemonhead, old Lamartez model was on the cover of that. Because yeah, Dark Angels in 3rd edition had like a montage of different Dark Angels with Asmodai pointing, and then there was a really good. The 7th edition Dark Angel book had a really cool looking Dark Angel on the cover.
You've got on the Witch Hunters book. There's like an angel-y saint with a massive spear.
Oh yeah,
that looks quite cool.
There you go.
It looks like it's more like cathedral kind of window painting of an angel kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a good one. I'd like to see the old Autarch from the 6th, the 7th edition Dark Eldar Codex come back.
The Autarch?
Not
From the
Autarch,
Drakari?
the Archon.
Oh yeah, he needs to come back, really, doesn't he? It's mad that he's on the cover, yet he's not even available anymore.
Yeah, because the new one is god awful. Everyone I know that's bought him has never actually built him and painted him as he is.
No.
And converted him to be in a lot less of a shonky pose.
Yeah, he is a bit of a weird one, isn't he? I quite liked the old Archon from the 5th edition Drakari. I thought he looked good.
Yeah.
He was quite a cool one. Anyway, we're going off on a massive tangent now. So yeah, there we go, everybody. That was us talking about the previews. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hope you found it informative. Always, it's a very interesting thing to do when you don't actually have the visual aids. So you obviously have to either, look at the article in your homestead as you listen, or hopefully our words that we use have allowed you to visualize what we're talking about quite spectacularly. But if you haven't seen him already, you desperately need to go out and have a look at the incredible new Necron character, which Joe will remind me the name of.
Illumina Caesares.
Yes, Illumina Caesares.
Or along those lines.
Yes, he's pretty spectacular. But that's it, guys. There you go. That was us talking about the latest Warhammer community update. We will move on now to whatever it is that comes next. Woo! Welcome back, everyone. In this part of the show, we're going to be talking about the new Deathwatch rules that can be found within issue, I don't know the numbers, of White Dwarf. But the new one, Phil, you've actually got White Dwarf in front of you. What are the numbers? Issue?
It is issue 453, which was a bit confusing because I basically had to spend ages trying to find my copy because I picked up the previous month's one, not realising it wasn't the latest one, because they used to say the month and year on it, which was super convenient, but they've gone back to the old style issue numbers.
Those rapscallions. I mean, I've conjured an image there of your grand bookcase covered in age-old tomes of Warhammer 40,000 related, antiquities, as it were.
I've got a shelf with some White Dwarf on, I've got upstairs next to my sort of bedside cabinet, I've got a couple of issues there. And then on the other side of the room, just on my chest of drawers, I've got a stack of White Dwarf. I keep meaning to get rid of them because I've honestly got too many. If anyone wants them and is willing to pay shipping for them, they can have them.
They can have them. I threw mine away, Phil. How bad am I?
I mean, I feel bad about that. I sort of, what I would really like White Dwarf to do, and this is going off tangent, is for them to just make like tear away pages. Because basically, once you've read it, for me, the things I want to keep are the painting tutorials, and that's pretty much it. And maybe rules specific to this edition, like when they've done Inquisition, or as what we're about to talk about, Deathwatch. So like those, you want to be able to tear them off, have the perforated holes in, exactly like how they've done it in Conquest, put them in a binder or something, or just store them somewhere so you've got them to flip through. I mean, I do love going back through old White Dwarfs and seeing stuff, but mostly I'm flicking through them to find a specific painting tutorial that I remember them having.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, obviously Joe's here as well, everyone, before we carry on talking about nostalgia for White Dwarf, I suppose. Hello, Joe.
Hello.
What was your first White Dwarf, Joe? Do you remember?
I do remember my first White Dwarf.
Well, please tell us.
It fondly. It was the White Dwarf many years ago when they had the free metal Necron warrior in it.
Oh, with the was that the Mordheim issue?
It was a Mordheim issue, yeah. And it was basically when they'd revamped and re-released the Necrons, essentially.
Yeah. Because they had that really mad piece of John Blanche artwork for Mordheim on it, didn't it? Yeah,
and that was literally the second time I'd ever set foot into a Games Workshop store.
I mean, that would have been, what, 1999?
Something about that, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Weird that one stuck in my head as well as it did, but yeah, there you go. My one, I believe, was the one with the Elder Viper jet bike on the cover.
Ooh.
So that was during the age-old time of second edition, and they had announced and put into White Dwarf the Viper jet bike and the Space Marine attack bike. Ooh.
Wow.
And that was back when the Space Marine attack bike was a regular Space Marine bike with a metal, side cart that you put on it.
Yeah.
That was a mad old time. I mean, there are still obviously a few kits out there that use the hybrid resin and plastic, but obviously not very many that use the metal and plastic combo. I mean, that was not a marriage made in heaven, was it?
Oh, God, no. That's when all the Space Marine tanks were, like, a really light plastic frame of a tank. And, like, the Whirlwind was the worst. So like, it had these massive Whirlwind launchers on the back, which were mounted on metal holders, which then mounted on a metal plate, which you put on this Rhino. And it just tipped up every single time. So the only way you could do it was by putting... like super gluing loads of coins or washers into the front end of it to weigh it down.
God, that was a nightmare. I remember when I frequented the Salisbury store, I was good friends with the staff and the store manager, and we were chuckling to ourselves as this, very downtrodden father had come in with what we would lovingly describe as an orange squash kid, i.e. one of those children that's just a little bit too hyperactive, as if they'd consumed too much orange squash. And somehow he walked out of the store with this Land Raider Crusader that he had bought for his child.
Oh, God.
And we were laughing because we were like, that poor guy now has to actually build that thing for his son. As if he doesn't suffer enough. Now he's got to try and build that.
If anyone ever had the Hurricane bolters still intact on the side of that Land Raider after like 2 games, was some kind of wizard.
Honestly. It was the worst. I mean, as bad as Phil's process of building a repulsor had been, nothing compares to the Hurricane bolters on a metal Hurricane bolters on a Land Raider Crusader.
Right. Or the worst kit was always the hybrid like plastic metal Tyranid kits, though.
Oh yeah, flipping.
I've never sworn so much in my life as the times I've built those things.
Yeah, because they used to have like the Hive Tyrant with the metal head that was like the size of a flipping skyscraper.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. So it was like two metal legs glued to like a tail joint, which was also the waist, and then you supported this huge apple-sized blob of metal on top, which was its torso, and then you had the head on top of that, and then you put plastic arms on the side.
Yeah.
Which made it, but it came on like a Terminator base.
Well, the game was a smaller scale back then, Joe.
Yeah, but it would just fall over all the time and just implode.
Yeah, the old NID stuff was... Well, not the old NID stuff. The 3rd edition NID stuff was pretty god-awful.
They were held together mainly through, like, pin vicing, like, paper clips and hopes and dreams.
Absolutely.
That's how those together.
Anyway, look, we've probably got gone off on a hell of a tangent here. We're talking about White Dwarf issue I've already forgotten, but the issue where they talk about the Deathwatch. So lo and behold,
that's the current one.
The current one. Lo and behold, fans of the Deathwatch, you've finally been updated. You're not good enough to get your own Psychic Awakening book. I mean, why would you think you were? But you do get a White Dwarf supplement to see you through till who knows what happens next. So, Joe, you're somewhat of a resident Deathwatch fan in as much as, well, I mean, technically it's my army still at the moment, but you're currently holding on to it, so...
it was mine, and then it became yours, and then it's kind of lived in my house for a couple of months because I said I was going to buy it, but I still haven't.
No, indeed.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
But,
Are you just hoping that Dan's going to forget about it?
Yes. But I'll never be able to play with it at an event that he goes to, because he'd be like, I recognise those.
Joe, I mean, to a certain extent, I've written off quite a lot of the debt that has gone in between the two of us, but that is definitely not one of them. That cost me quite a lot of money to buy it off of you, so so there you go. But look, I mean, so the Deathwatch, up to this point, how would we describe Deathwatch within the overall game over the last few months since Codex Space Marines came on the scene?
They've still been good, but they're not as good as the other Space Marines. So they're like the unwanted cousin, know. But they got all the cool stuff. They're like the cousin that's got all the money and has all the cool presents, and when you go over there, he won't let you play with them. So you just think like, I don't really like you, and then you don't want to go over their house anymore. It's just that they got all this cool kit that's really amazing, but it's overpointed and doesn't really work properly.
Yeah. And it's reasonable to say that, like, I mean, they got a few updates as and when Codex Space Marines came out, so their aggressors went up to 3 wounds and were increased to 3 attacks. Their assault bolters became the same as Space Marines. Their stalker bolt rifles became the same as Space Marines. So they did get a few upgrades to that. I suppose they're unique in as much as they're one of the few, and me and Joe were talking about this the other day, and Joe is certain this is true because I haven't fact-checked it, but one of the few Space Marine chapters, if you will, not that they are a chapter, but you know what I mean, that doesn't gain access to the new Phobos stuff, right? So they don't get the tactical war suit, and they don't get the infiltrators or the inceptors. None of that comes their way, does it?
No.
Oh, not inceptors, sorry, the incursors. So many different words.
No,
I'm pretty sure that's true.
Yeah, it was Blood Angels, Space Wolves, and all that lot got it in the updates, and then they officially got them in Psychic Awakening.
Yeah, I guess Deathwatch are akin to Grey Knights. It's like they're completely separate, so I can sort of see why they might not have.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because you kind of feel like the Phobos range kind of lends itself a little bit to the Deathwatch. I mean, again, I appreciate they're very different, but...
I don't think they do, because like, the Phobos guys are the infiltrators, and they go in and scout it out, and then the much larger force arrives. But Deathwatch very rarely get deployed as an army. So when they go... There's a gene stealer infection on that planet, they send 10 guys, maybe an apothecary with them as well, or a chaplain. Like, if they think it's really bad, they might send 20 guys and a captain. Like, at most, you very rarely see like mass deployment of Deathwatch.
Like the kill team is the infiltrator squad.
Yeah,
It's like you don't need an infiltrator squad for a 10-man kill team.
no, because they go in because they already know it's there. Usually, there's an Inquisitor that's done all of the groundwork for them, and then he just points them in the right direction.
So they don't figure it out; they just kill it.
Yeah, they are not a blunt. They are not like a fine instrument. They're just a hammer. They just go in and annihilate everything.
But they are themselves very, very good at killing Xenos things.
Yes, very well.
And I suppose before we get into some of the new stuff they've been given, it might be worth just highlighting one or two things that they had historically that actually was quite strong. And I mean, obviously, the first one would be their abundant access to storm bolters and 3+ invulnerable saves. That was pretty much a staple of competitive Deathwatch for a long time, right?
Yeah, every time you saw a Deathwatch army, the majority of the army was made up by 10-man squads with storm bolters and storm shields. Because if it stands still, it gets to shoot 40 times. Admittedly, they had changed it so that with bolter discipline, you couldn't do bolter discipline to stand still, shoot twice kind of thing. With specialist ammunition, you could only do it when you're in proper rapid fire range. But that's been changed now, so you can.
Yeah.
They also had the thing. It kind of went out of favor for a while, but they had access to the frag cannon, which is honestly one of my favorite weapons in all of 40k.
It just looks so cool as well.
It's a 2d6 heavy flamer at strength 6-1.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Its alternate variation is a damage 2 or 3 las cannon.
I think it's more auto cannon strength, isn't it? Isn't it strength 7?
No, yeah,
Or have they actually got 3 profiles now, madly enough?
the shotgun did.
Oh, that was it, yes. The shotgun, but not the...
The shotgun did, but the frag cannon didn't. So the frag cannon... Fragstorm launcher, Fragstorm... Oh my god. All of the frags.
But not the frag cannon.
Yeah, it's not here for some reason. Why is it playing silly voice?
This is why we need post-it notes in these books before we start these things.
It's hilariously, it's not in their section. Deathwatch. Oh my goodness!
It's a classic Joe being well prepared.
Talk amongst yourselves.
This is why Joe gets invited on all the podcasts for his sheer professionalism.
It's because they want to look professional, so they invite me on.
Oh, is that what it is? I mean, that's certainly why we have you here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say the disappointing, because I've always wanted a Deathwatch army. I've got a bunch of their models, and it was something I always wanted.
The reason I can't find it, it's called the Deathwatch frag cannon. It's not just the frag cannon. So it's 8-inch range, 2d6 shots, strength 6, -1 damage, automatically hits.
Yes, and then what's its other variant?
It's 24-inch range, assault 2, strength 7, -2 damage.
So like an autocannon.
But if the target is in half range, or 12 inches, it becomes strength 9.
That's it.
-3.
That was where it becomes the third profile, essentially. Yeah, that thing is crazy good. But Phil, you were saying about always wanting one of these.
Yeah, I've always wanted Deathwatch army, so I've always sort of been keeping my eye on them, so to speak. But the thing that always annoyed me about it in 8th edition is the thing that how you should sort of play kill teams is every guy's got a different gun. Like you've got the guy with the Fragstorm cannon, and then you've got the guy who is with the shotguns, because I think the shotguns are probably the nicest looking models out of the kind of Mark.
Oh, 100%.
Is it Mark 8 armor?
Mark 8,
yeah. No, Mark 8, yeah.
So,
go on,
I was going to say, and the best thing about shotguns, as films have told us, they have kept Earth safe from aliens for hundreds of thousands of years.
It's true.
Well, that's true. Yeah, so you kind of want a bit of a mixed bag, but then it seems like the way to play Deathwatch in 8th edition is just to spam Stormbolters. So you sort of go, oh, they end up all looking the same, which is a bit disappointing.
Yeah, but that's the efficient way to run them, right? And that's not necessarily always the way that people want to run them. I mean, obviously, there's a gulf of difference between what you do competitively and what you do for fun. I mean, for example, when we went to the Grand Tournament finals, which are, by the very nature of what it sounds like quite a, high-end competitive thing, and it certainly is at the top levels, but there was a guy there who turned up with the most beautiful Deathwatch army, where every single model was armed with all sorts of stuff, and, he didn't win any of his games, but it looked gorgeous.
No, well, he managed to qualify, because that's Damien Pedley, I think his name is.
It was all intercessors. It was all Chimera stuff. But they're definitely they're a painter's army, should you say?
Oh, for sure.
Like, if I was going to start an army from scratch now for 40k, and I was just getting into 40k, I had some time off, and I wanted an army that I could just make look beautiful. Deathwatch would be one of those choices, because every model, if you've got all the spare bits to do it, can look completely different and unique, because you want them to look like I've joined the Deathwatch, but I'm still keeping my heraldry, I'm still bringing my talismans and my own personal gear.
Yeah, it gives you an option to convert up every single model to represent the chapter that they're from. Yeah, because I spoke to him recently. He posted up an image, and I highly recommend people check him out on Instagram. And
we'll put a link in the description.
Yeah, and I basically was like, "Oh, I love your scroll work. Is that the Sisters of Battles transfers?" And he's like, "I've not used transfers in years. Like, it's all freehand." And I was just like, "Oh, I hate you so much." It's just like, it's so good. It's like, who have you sold your soul to be this damn good?
The thing is, as well, with that guy, is he's also really, really fun to hang out and chat with. He's just the most humble, like, decent, normal dude, and he just paints the most gorgeous armies. It's crazy. But yeah, look, I mean, just to quickly do a rundown, the things that make the Deathwatch unique is their unique HQ choice is essentially a Watchmaster, which is essentially a Chapter Master, except you don't have to pay CPs to make him a Chapter Master. You just get him as a Chapter Master. Bizarrely, the Watchmaster is still using the old style of Chapter Master rule, though, so he doesn't get to reroll everything. He just only gets to reroll what would be a miss before modifiers. Isn't that right, Joe?
Yeah, so you re-roll all misses.
Yes.
He was actually a bit of a badass before all the other Space Marine captains.
Oh yeah, he was above and beyond.
Yeah, he's got 6 wounds, a 2-up save, 4-up invuln, and he's got a Custodes Guardian Spear. So he's a bit of a beast.
There was a time in 7th edition where I was taking a Watchmaster with some Custodes just because I thought it was one of the coolest looking units available.
Oh yeah, such a cool model.
Oh, it's incredible. It's amazing. They do also have that other Captain something or other he's called, isn't he?
Captain Artemis.
Yeah, but no one ever takes Captain Artemis because he's nowhere as good as a Watchmaster. And but then I suppose obviously I say no one takes him. You're obviously very likely to take him if you like the mini.
Oh yeah, I would for sure.
Yeah,
and he has got a cool grenade. He's got the status bomb. It's got 6-inch range. This weapon can only be fired once. If the attack hits, deal D6 mortal wounds to your target. If it misses, Watch Captain Artemis takes D6 mortal wounds.
Yeah.
So he fumbles it and then dies. But he is ballistic skill 2, and he will be re-rolling ones to hit.
Yeah, he's pretty incredible. Wow, he's got some options. He's a pretty incredible looking mini, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And then the other really cool, unique thing about the Deathwatch is the kill team rules. So essentially, the troop sections of the Deathwatch are made up of either Deathwatch veterans or intercessors, and each of those entries can be organised into kill teams. So if you're taking veterans, you can include a Space Marine on a bike, Space Marine with a jump pack, and that's it, actually, isn't it, for those two? Oh, no, and a Terminator. So you can take Terminator, Space Marine on bike, Space Marine with jump pack, and regular guys on foot, and then kind of mix up the unit as you see fit. And then if you take those extra kind of types of Space Marine, you're actually going to add buffs to the overall unit. So if you take a Terminator, you ignore leadership tests, correct?
Yeah, you become fearless. If you've got the jump pack, you've got the Vanguard veteran, you can fall out of combat and shoot.
Yep.
And if you've got the bike veteran, you can fall out of combat and charge again.
Incredible.
You can also take a what are they called? Not a Black Knight.
The Black Shields. Yeah, I forgot about
the
Black Shields.
The Black Shield, and he basically allows you the unit to heroically intervene.
Yeah, I forgot all about the Black Shield. The Black Shield always sort of felt like it should have been cooler, but actually now hearing you saying that out loud, actually the Black Shield sounds pretty reasonable if it allows it to heroically...
And he's got more... He's got 3 attack space.
Yeah, and obviously now with them getting shock assault, he's now on 4 attacks when he goes in.
Yeah. So you give him the big hammer.
Oh yeah, God, he's going to be... Woof. He's going to be a scary boy when he gets in, isn't he?
Yeah.
Isn't there a thing with the Black Shield, like a stratagem or something, where he can fight twice?
Let me...
there was definitely something about him being able to get stuck in a bit more than other things, but maybe I'm making stuff up on the spot. But while Joe's looking for that, and if you take the Primaris variant, obviously you get the Intercessors as your baseline, and then you can add an Aggressor to that. If you take the Aggressor, you don't suffer the penalty for advancing and shooting with your assault weapons, so that's pretty incredible. If you take the the Interceptor, you're essentially given the ability to, again, I think, leave combat and still shoot. Isn't that right, Joe?
Yeah.
And then the last one is you can add a Hellblaster to the squad, can't you?
Hellblaster, yes. You can have up to 5.
Yeah.
So the minimum is 5 Intercessors, and then you can have the Hellblaster, Interceptor, Reaver, or Aggressor in any combination.
Oh, it's the Reaver as well you can take with them.
Yeah, so you can take 5 Intercessors and 5 Hellblasters if you wanted to in a unit.
That's cool. That's very cool. And then the last sort of unique element of the Deathwatch is none other than the Corvus Blackstar. You won't have probably ever heard of the Corvus Blackstar because it's rubbish. Unless Joe can find a redeeming feature for it in the next 2 minutes.
It's got
it looks cool.
It looks very cool.
It's got a lot of guns, like a lot of guns, and it can hover. So if it stays still, it's quite good. And it's got the it's hard to hit.
Yep.
It's got you can give it an Auspex array, so you can re-roll hit rolls of 1 for a model with an Auspex array targeting an enemy unit that can fly, which is quite good. Mm-hmm. So instead of getting +1, it re-rolls 1s, which is quite good. Mm-hmm. Or you can give it the Infernum Halo launcher, where you re-roll save rolls of 1, mm-hmm. Which is not bad, given it's got a 3-up save.
Yep.
And it has you can twin las cannons, twin assault cannons. It's got the Stormstrike missile launcher, which is just a damage-free -3 AP missile, which is at strength 8. Hurricane bolters, and then it's got the Black Star rocket launcher, so it can either fire a heavy D6 shot at strength 6 -1, mm-hmm. and you add 1 to hit when you shoot at targets with the fly keyword. Mm-hmm. So then it's hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s. Or the Dracos warhead, which is strength 4, no -AP. 1 damage, and you add 1 to hit when targeting a unit that's in cover. Mm-hmm. That's about it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and it has a transport capacity as well.
Oh yeah, it can carry 12 models.
I think it's 12, which is actually a pretty healthy amount.
Yeah.
But just regular old school Marines, obviously.
Yeah, and and Terminators.
Oh yeah.
It does also have the ability to drop bombs every turn.
Every turn?
Yeah, so the Black Star Cluster Launcher. This model can fire its Black Star Cluster Launcher as it flies over enemy units in the movement phase. To do so, After this model has moved, pick one enemy unit that it flew over, then roll 1d6 for each model in the unit up to a maximum of 10. Each time you roll a 6 for the unit being bombed, it suffers a mortal wound.
I mean, that's pretty reasonable, isn't it?
Yeah, like if you have 3 of them on the table, I guess, and they're just doing strafing runs the whole game.
But I imagine you wouldn't really want 3 on the table.
No, I mean they're just. I mean, I don't know what their points are clocking in at anymore, but they used to be quite expensive for all that, and there were just some fundamental problems with them. They just weren't that strong, unfortunately.
Yeah, and they don't have machine spirit like other
that's it. Yeah,
flyers, so they suffer the negative modifier for moving and shooting.
Yeah, that was a big muck up for them for sure.
Yeah, considering it's their equivalent of the Storm Raven, as good as a Storm Raven.
They should have just given them the Storm Raven.
Yeah, that would have made it, or just given it the Storm, exact same rules as a Storm Raven, just looks different.
I mean, to be fair, if they could get the Storm Raven, imagine that with like some, Deathwatch Dreadnoughts or something ploughing up on. That'd be actually all right.
Did they not get access to some of the other flyers?
No,
none
of them.
It was.
They can take Forge World.
It was
flyers.
Grey Knights, I think I was thinking of.
They can take the Xiphon, for example.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's about it. But and then their unique trait, which we probably should have led with, is that you can pick a thing. So an HQ, a troop, an elite, a fast attack, a heavy support, but not a flyer or not a Lord of War.
Oh no, Lord of War comes under heavies.
Oh, okay. And then what? Flyer comes under fast attack, does it?
Yeah. Hilariously, no troop transports. Dedicated troop transports you can't choose.
Yeah, so dedicated transports have no criteria. Fine. But the point is you can pick a thing for your army, and then you reroll ones to wound against that thing. Correct?
Against all things of that type. If you chose elites and you're playing a Space Marine player, your entire army will get to re-roll to wound rolls against all of their dreadnoughts, terminators, aggressors, so on.
Yeah. And then they had varying abilities where they could like mix that up, so they could have like a guy that created an aura that might have been, say, heavy support, and then the overarching army discipline could have been troop. But then if you're within 6 of the guy with the aura, then it changes it. So there was some trickery that could be done with it.
They do have a cool teleportarium strat where you can pick an infantry, biker, or dreadnought unit. Up to 3, 1 command point for each, and they can go in deep strike, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
So you don't have to take drop pods.
I mean, one of the things I'm going to say for the outset from the Deathwatch in terms of the new Deathwatch and what they add to the overarching kind of opportunities for armies, I do sort of feel like, again, this is yet another Astartes army, another Space Marine army, that further reaffirms to me that from a competitive play standpoint, now that they've changed the way that the doctrines work, that this is yet another incredible addition to your Imperial soup. Let's be completely honest with ourselves now, because you can now start to mix and match lots of different like Space Marine stuff and still gain the overarching ability to have doctrines. You just lose your super doctrine. But now that you can actually start to build things that can exploit other things, I mean, I feel like for most Space Marine players now, why wouldn't you have Deathwatch as your main troops and then build out from there? And I suppose
because one thing we've not mentioned is they get access to special issue ammunition.
Oh yeah, sorry, and that's obviously their major hook is the special issue ammunition. Which we kind of talked about a little bit before, but apologies for presuming that everyone knew that was a thing. So we'll talk about it in more detail when we get to the bit where we talk about that they can still use it, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, they have different versions of bolt guns. So yeah, in fact, Joe, we may as well go through each of the bolt variants. So
there's, I've gone off the blooming page.
It's all right, Joe. We expected nothing less.
Yeah, so they've got 4 types of ammunition for their guns.
For their bolt guns.
But only bolt guns and bolt pistols and storm bolters, not heavy bolters, and not aggressors. So it's...
not bolt storm gauntlets.
No. So they have either Dragonfire Bolts, which is add 1 to the hit rolls for this weapon when targeting a unit in cover, which is not bad, but no one ever really uses it ever because the army's got so many re-rolls. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
Hellfire rounds. This weapon always wounds on a 2 except against vehicles and Titanic units. Brilliant. Absolutely incredible when you look at things like Stalker Bolt Rifles, because they're -2 damage. So turn 1, it's a -3 AP, 2 damage gun that wounds all units in the game on 2s apart from infantry.
And all units of the games
Oh.
except for vehicles, you mean?
Apart from vehicles, yeah. So, like, against Tau, against Tyranids, hilarious.
It's also fun as well, though, isn't it? Because we're probably going to get ahead of ourselves a little bit here, but because people who play regular Space Marines will be like, oh, because then I can use that with the ability where I can now use my Stalkers to snipe characters, and now
Yes.
they have access to that. So that's even more ridiculous.
Yeah, they will be annihilating characters. I think you'll start to see a drop in Eliminators and a rise in Stalker Bolt Rifles. Deathwatch.
Deathwatch Stalkers,
Then
yeah.
Then you've got Kraken bolt rounds. Add 3 to the range of the weapon if it's a pistol, or 6 otherwise to any other gun, and improve the AP of the attack by 1. An AP of 0 becomes -1 to a maximum of an additional -2.
So if you're in the tactical doctrine, your bolt rifle's got -3.
Yes, which is brilliant.
That's pretty strong, isn't it?
Oh, it is amazing. And so those Stalker Bolt Rifles are -4 AP turn 1.
Wow.
And range 36 or 42, actually, isn't it? On the Stalkers already 36.
They're already 36.
Oh, God. Oh, okay.
And then you've got... but that's also good for things like Assault Bolters, which are 3 shots, no -AP, at 24. They then become 32-inch range, and they've got a -1 AP. Return to -2.
Well, they become 30-inch range, don't they? Not 32.
Yeah, 30. and then you've got the Vengeance round, which is subtract 3 from the range of a pistol, or 6 if it's not, and improve the AP of the attack by 2. So, e.g., no AP becomes -2 to a maximum of -3.
I mean, that's very strong.
Yeah.
But then your Assault Bolter becomes range 12, right?
It becomes range 18.
Oh, is
It's
the
minus-
Assault Bolter range 24?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought they were 18 for some reason.
Yeah. So those things become terrifying. Because
Yeah.
assault. So we'll jump ahead slightly. I think the assault bolt is going to be one of the best guns that they have access to, because turn 3, you can turn up 9 inches away, spend 2 CP to have the entire unit auto hit. You don't have to roll to hit; they just automatically hit, and their guns are -3 AP.
Crikey.
30 shots. Just
Yeah, because that only works when you're within half range.
Yes.
Because you can just deep strike down.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
really
beastly.
good.
So, in terms of the stuff they've added to these guys, so they now are Angels of Death, which they were before, but they've written it in the intro section, so it's all clarified. So they get everything that Angels of Death offers them, which is to say that when they charge, they get Shock Assault, so they add 1 to their attack characteristic when they're charged or heroically intervene. They also have They Shall Know No Fear, which again they had before. You know the deal, they re-roll morale tests. They gained access to Bolter Discipline, which, as we clarified earlier, used to not work with the special issue ammunition that we were talking about, but now does. So, yeah, these guys have had a pretty strong upgrade, even with just that aspect added. But then they also, as we've already kind of alluded to or outright said, also gain access to combat doctrines. And the combat doctrines are Devastator Doctrine, which happens in turn 1, which is basically all heavy weapons become an additional -1 AP. Then you move to Tactical Doctrine as of turn 2, where all your assault and rapid fire weapons get an additional -1. And then for turn 2, turn 3, you can stay in assault. Tactical Doctrine, sorry. And then in turn 3, but definitely by turn 4, you move to Assault Doctrine, where your pistols and I believe your melee weapons, pistols and melee weapons become an additional AP -1 as well. Unlike other Space Marine chapters, though, these guys don't get a Super Doctrine, do they?
No, which is a little bit weird. I didn't understand why, but
Is it because their ammo is their Super Doctrine?
I think so. I think it's because they have access to that, and you don't pay an additional cost for your models anymore, by the looks of it. So a standard veteran is 16 points, which is exactly the same as a Space Marine veteran. But he only has access to one type of ammunition, whereas they have access to 4.
I mean, more and more as we're sort of talking through this, as I was already sort of saying, I feel like Deathwatch are becoming the quintessential Marine battalion, aren't they? Like, it's just
Oh god, yeah.
It's becoming quite obvious already immediately that these guys have had some serious improvements here.
And their points work out really efficiently as well. So a 10-man unit of Deathwatch Space Marine veterans, so the basic guys, with 10 Storm Bolters, 10 Storm Shields, is the exact same points as 10 Intercessors with bolt rifles.
But again, and both options offer you some really incredible...
I actually think that the best way to build the list now is 5 squads, 2 squads with Storm Shields and Storm Bolters, and then 3 squads of Intercessors, 1 with each type of bolter. Because then you're really maximising on the effects of what you can actually do in game. So if you go to an event, you've always got a unit to deal with any opponent. And those Stormbolter guys just kill everything anyway. But if you come up against a guard player or a Genes to the Occult player with lots of really good characters, then those snipers will do a lot of work. If you come up against an Orc player, then those Assault Bolters and Storm Bolters will do loads of work for you. So you're in a really good position, whoever you come up against.
But I think if you had to pick one of the Bolter variants for the Primaris, I think you're probably still going to be thinking about or using the Stalker, right?
It's a toss-up between the Stalker bolt rifle and the Assault Bolter, in my opinion, because, yes, the Stalker bolt rifle has got a great negative AP and it's damage 2. But it's only 1 shot.
Yeah.
Whereas the Assault Bolter is 20 points range and it's Assault free.
Yeah.
For 2 turns of the game, it's already -1 AP. And then you can give it the different types of ammunition. And they just have the ability to kind of move around the table with no negatives.
It's true. Because I suppose you put the Aggressor in there, don't you? And then you're just advancing all over the place and doing
But
all
then
that.
you're -1 to shoot, or are you not because of the Aggressor?
Yeah, so the Aggressor nullifies the negative for advancing.
Okay, yeah. So how does it work with the ammo before, where how did they explicitly state that the ammo wasn't compatible?
It just specifically said it in the bolt.
Does it specifically say they can now, or does it just not include the bit where they say they can't?
They've taken out the bit where it says they can't.
Yeah.
Because it was in the FAQ saying that they can't use it.
Unless that FAQ is still in effect, in which case...
I wouldn't think so. They'd have to release a new updated one.
Yeah.
Because all publications basically replace anything old.
Because ultimately that FAQ would point to like a book and a page number normally.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be worth double checking just in case.
So they'd have to, in this case, they'd actually have to FAQ White Dwarf.
Which they have done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, I don't know, it's a real toss-up. I think depending on what, I suppose it really depends what your army composition is there to do and what you're there to kind of create. So if it is that you're envisioning your Deathwatch being this aggressive, mid-table, seize the objective force, I think the Assault Bolter is the way to go. If you're just kind of creating a ridiculous mass of bodies that are shooting at range and gun lining it, then obviously the Stalker is going to make sense. And if you really can't make up your mind, there is still a lot of good things to be said about the standard bolt rifle, because if we get into the stratagems, which I suppose we should do now, one of the stratagems that these guys gain access to, which is a very common Space Marine stratagem, is rapid fire, which is use the stratagem at the start of the shooting phase. Select one Deathwatch Intercessors unit from your army until the end of that phase. Bolt rifles that models in your unit are equipped with become rapid fire 2. So all of a sudden that 10-man unit with bolt rifles is blasting out 40 shots, which is pretty terrifying.
And they're built-in -1 as well.
Yeah. So if you're in the tactical doctrine doing that, you could be as much as -4 with those bolt rapid-firing bolt rifles.
Yeah, so they're going to get a lot of work done.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with it. But I think the thing is, and again, this is another stratagem which we've already sort of talked through, target sighted is so strong there, right? So use the stratagem in the shooting phase, select one Deathwatch Intercessor unit with Stalker bolt rifles. That model in that unit are equipped with, this weapon can target characters even if they're not the closest. I mean, that is so strong. I mean, people have been using that with Space Marine armies, with Imperial Fists and Raven Guard have been using that so well lately. But yeah, the fact that these guys now get access to it, and again, as Joe has sort of said, and I'm saying, and Phil is obviously agreeing with, these guys can be -4.
And I actually think they do a better job at getting around the table, better than Raven Guard, because they already had that strat that allows them to deep strike everywhere, with 3 units. They still have access to jump pack captains and Terminator captains, so they can deep strike in for free. And they also have access to a relic called the Beacon Angelus. So at the end of the movement phase, you select a unit, a friendly infantry unit on the table, or dreadnought unit, and move it to be within 6 inches of that character and 9 inches away from an enemy unit.
So you can teleport a dreadnought?
Yes.
Like any kind of dreadnought?
Any kind of dreadnought.
Like a Contemptor?
Or a Leviathan.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I never knew that one.
So we were talking about this with Richie last night, and he made a very good point, which is that actually there's an argument that their grav cannon variant could be actually pretty terrifying with Deathwatch. Because you could have a jump pack captain jump out in your turn 1, and then if you rolled well and you got obviously let's use the example that you got the 6, you move 18. So if you're within a sort of 12-inch if you're in a sort of 24-inch gap sort of situation, you're theoretically 6 inches away now from your enemy's deployment zone. So now your Leviathan dreadnought with his 2 grav cannons can be wherever you need him to be within range of, say, a unit of 30 orc boys. Because the thing about the grav cannons that are so mental is that for every 5 models in the unit, you add an extra D3. But obviously, if you have 2 guns, that becomes an extra 2d3. So we did the roll last night, and the Leviathan dreadnought did 33 wounds to a unit of 30 orc boys. And these things are AP -4, 2 damage each. They're mental.
Yeah, they are crazy good.
They are quite good against vehicles as well, though, aren't they? Because against vehicles, they're -5 AP, flat 5 damage.
Yes.
The only problem with that, though, is that they're only 2d3 shots against vehicles, so it's unlikely that you're going to kill a vehicle with this thing in a 1er. So, but they're very good at killing hordes, which is a plus. But me and Joe kind of both agree. In fact, you tell him, Joe, the storm cannon array, right?
The storm cannon array is the universally all-round better one, just because it's good in all situations. because if you with the grav cannon, yeah, it's really good against the horde. But the only thing you've got to shoot at is a single model character. I'd rather just have 20 strength 7 shots.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of on the same page as you, mate.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about the Bolt Storm stratagem, Joe? Can you do that? Have you the ability to summon up those words?
I've already mentioned the Bolt Storm one.
I know, that's why I just asked you to sort of talk about it.
Which is you just choose a unit of guys with assault bolters, and as long as you're within half range, you automatically hit with all shots. You don't roll to hit. So that's super good if they are not in range of a character to buff them, for instance. Or you just want to make sure that 30 boys die immediately. They have so you can go. So turn 2, these assault bolters are going to be -1.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you go, I hit automatically. I'm going to use the wound on 2's ammunition at the same time. So I'm wounding all these orc boys on 2s. I'm going to be re-rolling 1s to wound because they're troops, and I've chosen troops to be my chosen thing.
Yeah.
So you go, cool, that's 30 orc boys dead. Blah, because they only got a 6-up save.
Yeah.
If for instance you came up against a 10-man intercessor squad, you go, cool, I'm going to do the additional -2 because you're still in half range when I do this shooting, and then I'll pay I think it's 2 CP to give myself +1 to wound against you. So my 30 shots automatically hit. Then I'm wounding you on 3s, re-rolling 1s at -3 AP.
In that instance, though, wouldn't you say rather than spending the 2 CP, it would just be better just to do the always wound on 2s variant?
I suppose so, but then, you're not re-rolling the 2s, but then you're massively decreasing the save on those Space Marines.
Well, you say that you're only adding 1 to the situation, so -3 rather than -2.
Well, no, because if you wound on 2s, it's only -1.
Oh, didn't the wound on 2s add an additional -1? You were saying?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I got myself all.
So in
crossed up there.
in turn 2, you're in a tactical
yes,
doctrine,
of
so you
course.
get the additional, you get the -1.
Fine. Okay, so it wouldn't have been -2 against the orcs. It would have just been -1.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Phil, do you want to talk about the weird anomaly that is the Deathwatch's Duty Eternal?
So Duty Eternal, use this stratagem when a Deathwatch Dreadnought model from your army is chosen as a target for an attack. Until the end of the phase, when resolving an attack made against that model, halve the damage inflicted, rounding up. So it's basically the old version.
That is
which
right.
Is
it the old version? Is it the old version with a different name?
No, it was still. Oh.
Let me. I've got the Space Marine Codex right next to me.
I thought it was always called that.
Oh, it is called Duty Eternal, yeah.
Yeah. But obviously, this is the first time these guys have ever gained access to it, and obviously, it speaks to how rapid that FAQ was that they did after the LVO. But yeah, no, technically, if you want to take that Leviathan, you can half its wounds.
I imagine they might keep it, just because Deathwatch don't have access to wound regeneration on Dreadnoughts.
True.
They don't have access to Tech Marines.
Yeah, they don't have the same level of exploits, that's for sure. But still, the fact that has been universally recognised as such a strong ability, and then has then been removed. And again, going back to what I was saying before, when you can mix up your Space Marine armies, I don't believe there's any reason why a Iron Hands Tech Marine, such as old Father Favios, what's his face, couldn't heal this thing, could he?
But a Mechanicum Tech Priest can.
Oh, so what? The Space Marine Tech Marine can't just repair any Space Marine vehicle.
I just put the book down. Hang on.
I'm sorry.
We'll have a quick gander.
Yeah.
I
could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure they can. But
I think they can.
Yeah.
Right, Tech Marine. Oh no, you can't. So at the end of your movement phase, this model can repair one friendly chapter vehicle.
Oh, so it's specifically chapter, is it?
Yeah.
Ah, well, fair enough.
I'm pretty sure a tech priest, engine seer, and a prep priest dominus can.
Okay.
Still,
though, it adds some interesting ideas, doesn't it? The fact that it gains access to it is still quite cool.
Yeah.
And Phil,
I just like the fact that there's a Space Marine tech priest out there going, "Oh, I'm sorry, brother, because your dreadnought is painted in yellow and not black. I can't go near it. It's a
fun fact: when a Space Marine dies in the service of the Deathwatch and becomes a dreadnought, he no longer counts as being. He doesn't get sent back to that chapter.
No.
He then belongs to the Deathwatch forever.
They're like, we've got him. This living urn is now ours.
Yeah,
that's our loophole. You're here now forevermore.
You're trapped.
Yeah.
Have fun with that. Phil, seeing as you're in the spirit of talking about stratagems, do you want to tell us about Big Guns Never Tire?
Yep, sure thing. So Big Guns Never Tire. Use a stratagem in your shooting phase when a Deathwatch vehicle unit from your army is chosen to shoot with. Until the end of that phase, that unit does not suffer the penalty for moving and firing heavy weapons.
Which I guess is a way that you can mitigate the fact that your Corvus
Black Star's
Blackstar...
a bit rubbish, yeah.
I mean, it's only 1 CP. And it, again, though, right?
Is this a Deathwatch specific one? Or is that a generic one, actually?
I think this probably is a generic one, yeah.
Because I got the impression they're all generic.
Say, for example, though, if you were to have a deep striking dreadnought via a teleportation device, this is quite handy for it, because then all of a sudden your Leviathan is hitting on 2s, not 3s. So that's a win.
But they have changed the name of some. So Fury of the First isn't called Fury of the First. It's just called Veteran Fury now.
And what does Veteran Fury do, Phil, Joe, while we're talking about it?
It just allows a unit of Terminators in either combat or shooting +1 to hit. Which is quite nice, because it means that their Power Fist, Thunderhammer, stuff like that, are all hitting on 3s instead of 4s, which then makes the Watch Captain a bit better, because then he does get the 4 rerolls then. Or it means that your Stormbolters are hitting on 2s in the shooting phase.
Which is no bad thing.
No, and they get access to special ammunition as well. So they're a little bit scary, because they're hyper resilient then.
Well, especially when you consider, because again, that was another unit that we were talking about with that bizarre jump pack captain teleportation strategy. Yeah. The idea that you could just go, there's 10 Terminators. Have fun.
Turn 1.
Yeah. Turn 1, I've got 10 Terminators teleporting in front of you and just blowing away something with, again, 40 shots. It's like, oh. And they're not even that expensive, the Deathwatch variant, right? Because you can take them all with power swords rather than power fists.
Because they've got lots of... they're kind of like Deathwing Terminators. So you can have them in any combination of weapons within the presets. So it's either Thunderhammer, Storm Shield, or you can have Stormbolter and any power weapon up to Power Fist, but not Thunderhammer. And then you can have the 2 heavy weapons in the squad as well, of either Assault Cannon or Heavy Flamer.
But you're probably not going to bother with those, are you? You're just going to take the bolters.
No, because you wouldn't take the Flamer, because the Stormbolter is a constant 4 shots and better, because it has special ammunition. And you take the Stormbolter over the Assault Cannon, although you lose the Strength 6 if you go to the Stormbolter, and you lose 2 shots, but instead of wounding some things on 3s, you get to wound it on 2s, kind of thing.
Yeah. And, again, okay, fair enough, the Assault Cannon will benefit from the turn 1 Devastator Doctrine side of things, but it's not going to make that much of a difference to things, is it?
No, because you think they're probably not going to be on the table turn 1 in all instances.
No.
Whereas the Stormbolters benefit for 2 turns of +1 negative AP.
Yeah. I mean, again, I was sort of thinking whether or not there was anything to be said for just taking lots of Terminators for Deathwatch. You know, just be like, there's 30 Terminators. Have fun with that.
There could be an argument to not take Deathwatch veterans at all. Just take intercessors and Terminators. Because then you're laughing, really.
Well, the only thing is you can't then mix in Storm Shields with the Terminators unless you want to take the Thunderhammers, but then you might want to take the Thunderhammers because they're...
Well, if we slightly leap ahead, Deathwatch now have access to the new Chaplain litanies.
They do, yes, that is true.
Yeah. So you could take... So you have access to all the generic Space Marine litanies, which is incredible. Because that means that you can now deep strike in that unit of Terminators within 6 inches of a jump pack Chaplain with that relic, and then charge with an additional +1. So you're making an 8-inch charge.
+2 to charges, isn't it, for the chappers?
+2? I think it's plus. It might be +2 actually.
It is +2, yeah. It's definitely +2.
So it's only a 7-inch charge then, which is even better. Which then boosts those up even more. So I think you're gonna, because you didn't really see chaplains in Deathwatch ever. I think there's going to be a big increase. Having that +1 to wound strat on the nearest enemy unit in the shooting phase is really, really good. Because then your stratagem, which gives you +1, and then you've got the litany that gives you +1, means that your other bolter variants or ammunition variants that aren't wound on 2s then become wound on 2s.
Also, it's worth saying as well, because these guys also technically have still currently now got access to the 1CP adaptive strategy stratagem, which is they could actually spend multiple turns in the Devastator Doctrine.
Yeah, that is true. I imagine like it will get FAQ'd very quickly once everything goes back to normal.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, early doors, you could potentially still exploit the joys of.
If you were so inclined, yes. Although I would probably suggest to a lot of people just play it the way the new one is.
Yeah, I agree.
Just because you're then used to it for when it does change, and then you're not kind of put out.
Yeah, for the love of God, don't go out and buy yourself a load more whirlwinds because all of a sudden, I don't think Deathwatch even can take whirlwinds, but you know,
they could take the whirlwind Scorpius.
Ah, yes. Well, anyway, don't go out your way to fill up your army with heavy weapons because you think that they've slipped through the cracks. I'm pretty sure they're going to get that removed at some point before it's meaningful. Other stratagems that they've got access to: transhuman physiology, which is probably by far and away one of the most useful stratagems that Space Marines have access to. This is the one that essentially means that you can't wound them on anything other than a 4+. So regardless of what you're shooting at these guys, you can only ever wound them on a 4+. So it's 2 CP, and in instances like where you're taking 10 Terminator squads or even 10 intercessors in a squad, transhuman physiology is super strong. I mean, Phil, you've been using Marines lately. I assume you've gotten some use out of transhuman physiology.
No, do you know what? I've not ever used this strat.
What?
I probably need. Yeah, I know. I probably need to.
I think you really need to, mate. That might explain why you've been losing all your games.
Oh, I've not been losing. I won a couple,
right.
and I've lost. I think I've won 2 and lost 3.
Did you lose those 3 because they had really strong guns that wounded your models on 2s?
No, they just had lots of Ultramarines. Just intercessors and aggressors out of 2 of them, and then the other one was against. Oh, actually, that one not quite. It was against Sisters and the what's it called? Not the Inferno, the one with the dual melters.
Oh yeah,
like the Rhino. That ended up finishing off my captain, I think. Via some. It took him a while, but yeah. I think that's one of the few times where a high strength weapon actually killed them. Most of the stuff when they have died has been to just low strength guns with lots of shots.
Yeah.
So it hasn't really been applicable.
Well,
Yeah.
take it from me, Phil. When I have played against Space Marines, transhuman physiology is darn annoying because a lot of my army in competitive play is made up of strength 6 guns. So when they nullify the usefulness of that, it's quite irritating. I mean, Joe, you've used it to great effect, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, it's won me games. Like I've had games against like Imperial Knights where like a gallant has just run into my lines like a big baby just trying to toss my Marines around, and I'm like, no, you're not wounding me on 2s anymore. Be gone with you. Especially
would you spend that 2 CP on a 5-man squad, or would you save it for a 10-man squad specifically?
Oh, 100%. I'd 100% use it on a 5-man squad, because then that knight, the chances of that knight killing the whole squad are really, really low. Then, and if you're sat on an objective, like if that knight kills all the models, then it's holding that objective. If it leaves just one alive, you've got OBSEC and you hold it and you get that point. And that point is the game. So it's always worth investing. I spent transhuman when a fully wounded Crusader knight ran into my Space Marine captain. And I was like, I'm going to have to transhuman him just to keep him going. The knight only did like 2 wounds to him in the end.
That's pretty good going, mate. That's pretty good going. Other stratagems include Hammer of Wrath. Ooh. So use this stratagem when a jump pack unit from your army finishes a charge move. For each model in that unit, you can select one enemy unit within 1 of that model, roll a d6, and on a 5+, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. It's reasonable. You're not going to necessarily see a lot of jump pack models in a Deathwatch army.
Actually, you can add 1 Inceptor, right?
You can, absolutely, but then you're getting 1 model.
Well, no, because it just says for each model in that unit.
Phil, so are you getting gamey on me? Is this what I'm hearing here?
Well, it depends. It says use a stratagem when a jump pack unit. Is that a whole unit where everyone has a jump pack?
It has to be the whole unit.
I mean, it would make sense.
Yeah, I admire your dastardly thinking, Phil.
I was twirling my beard for a second. Going,
I mean, don't get me wrong, mate. It's good effort, but I don't think that's going to be reality. But
no, I wouldn't.
You're not going to see squads of Vanguard vets very, very often. Like, admittedly, like now they have access to the chaplains. Like, they become slightly more viable. Terms from the Vanguard veterans equipment and Storm Shield. So you can have a 10-man squad with Thunderhammer Storm Shields.
Yeah. Let's be honest with ourselves, right? If you're thinking about Marines now, I still think the mixed Marine stuff's the way to go. So you're going to take Sanguinary Guard, aren't you? You're not going to take... If you're thinking about taking Vanguard veterans, you're just going to take a Blood Angel detachment with Sanguinary Guard. Done. Because for a Vanguard detachment, you can literally just go, there's 20 Sanguinary Guard and a Sanguinary Ancient with the, we now have 5 up, feel no pain, and the Sanguinor is going to be my HQ because +1 attack's no bad thing. Off I go. I don't know. Again, talking sort of about, mixing it all up. But I think, Vanguard veterans can still and do make sense, I guess, but... And then, there's a bunch of other stratagems in there that are all from Space Marines. There's Hero of the Chapter, which essentially means that now you can take another Deathwatch character and give it a Warlord trait, and that's pretty useful, actually, because you didn't really have access to that before, so now you can have more Warlord traits dotted around the place. These guys won't be able to use the Warlord traits from the Space Marine book, so they're not going to be able to access quite as many useful ones. There were a couple good Warlord traits for the Deathwatch, right, Joe? Without having to go through them all. Yes and no. The main one you take is it not what to turn? Where is it?
Lord of Hidden Knowledge. So you get one free reroll. Basically, if your warlord is in the battlefield, you can reroll a hit to wound, damage, or saving throw. But it doesn't say for the warlord, so anyone can use that reroll.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever you use a stratagem on a 5+, you get a command point back. The only one I probably would say is quite useful is Nowhere to Hide, which I quite like. At the start of each of your shooting phases, pick one enemy unit anywhere on the battlefield. For the duration of the phase, that unit does not receive the benefit of cover against attacks made by the Deathwatch units from your army.
Oh, that's quite tasty.
So you just go, turn one, your opponent spends 2 CP to get cover, and you go, that important unit will die now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. But yeah, so there you go. So you get access to that. Joe's already gone through Veteran Fury, which would otherwise be called something of the first. I can't remember now, but there it is. We've already talked about Adeptive Doctorings and the fact that they'll definitely FAQ them away. Vengeance of the Machine Spirit's an interesting one, isn't it? And again, this is something that all Space Marines get access to anyway, but ultimately if you've got a Deathwatch Land Raider or a Deathwatch Repulsor, when it is destroyed, that model can either automatically explode. Do not roll the d6. So 2 CP to automatically explode. Shoot with one of its ranged weapons as if it were your shooting phase. Or make one attack with one of its melee weapons as if it was the fight phase. As if you'd ever do that. But you get to use the top...
The Repulsor would be quite cool, because you'd be like, cool, have all of its 12 gut... like the big heavy Gatling cannon.
Oh yeah. Like that's the thing. To be able to shoot is amazing. To fight, no, thank you. But,
people are like, boop, I'm gonna roll into you and do all of no damage.
Yeah.
Because it still hits on 6s in combat. You're not gonna spend that CP to make 1 6+ attack.
Yeah. Well, 2 CP. But I think that's the thing, though, isn't it? It adds a really interesting element, because the idea that you can have. Like, if you've got quite a heavily wounded Repulsor or Land Raider, probably the Repulsor more than Land Raider because it's a little bit more fly-y. But the idea that you could just be like, oh well, nuts to it, forwards, and just get it blown up, just so as you can. Again, like, Tau armies would love that, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Like, if you could get within, like, 2 inches of them and then could declare a charge and then have the entire army overwatch it and then just be like, cool, and now I explode. All those drones are dead. Lovely. Move on. Which would be quite fun. So that's all right. And then steady advance. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a Deathwatch infantry unit from your army is chosen to shoot with. Until the end of that phase, you, for the purposes of bolted discipline ability, that unit is treated as having remained stationary. So that's quite good, isn't it? It's all right.
Yeah.
So again, with that, 40 shots from your bolt rifles, you can still move your unit and still get your 40 shots at range 24 at AP -3 or whatever it is. And yeah, that'd be pretty crazy, wouldn't it?
But then I kind of think that having the assault bolt, this is why I'm going to keep making the argument for the assault bolters. So you don't have to spend that CP because you're already firing 1 more shot than a storm bolter, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
You can move and fire without having to spend the command points.
True. Very true.
Yeah.
And then last one is Gene Wrought Might. Joe, you're a fan of this one, so why don't you tell us what that is?
I've gone off the blooming page. 1 minute.
It's the fighty one for Primaris Infantry, mate.
Oh, so Gene Wrought Might, basically on the roll of a 6 to hit, you generate an additional hit. Oh no, on a roll of a 6 to hit, you automatically wound with that attack. Which is quite fun on like a unit. If you've got like a kitted out unit of aggressors, that's quite funny. Because they will just run in and wail on something.
Yeah. It's also really good for, again, Sanguinary Guard.
It's really good for Sanguinary Guard. Well, no, because they can't use it because it's...
oh, yes, so it's Primaris only. Yes, sorry, I forgot about that bit. Yes.
In normal... Hang on, let me just... No, you can't make them... If you take Veteran Intercessors in a normal Space Marine army... So, I've seen it used in... what are they called? Crimson Fist
Shields.
armies.
Oh, Crimson Fist, yeah.
Yeah, so if you take a unit of 10 intercessors, make them veterans, they've all got 3 attacks each, and then if they're within 6 inches of Pedro, they get an additional attack. So they're at 4 attacks each. So then when they charge, they're at 5 attacks each. So that one squad is then putting out 51 close combat attacks.
They are pretty bonkers at that point, aren't they?
Yeah, and then you go, okay, 6 is automatically wound, just to increase my chances of hurting you even more.
Amazing.
Yeah. And what you could do then, right, just for the lols, is take a chaplain that when you roll a 6 to hit, you generate an additional attack.
And I mean, why wouldn't you at this stage?
Yeah, and that 10-man unit of intercessors will just destroy. Potentially, you could, if you were very lucky, kill an Imperial Knight with 50 plus attacks.
Did you account for? Sorry, I zoned out for a moment there where you were talking numbers. Did you account for the Crimson Fist if they're a smaller unit situation as well?
Oh, so they get +1 to hit.
Yeah, so obviously they get exploding 5s, or is it unmodified 6s?
I think it's an unmodified 6 because there are ways of doing it. Sadly, if you do the exploding 6s one, they don't automatically wound, because it used to be that GW ruled it that when something happens automatically, the second roll is always assumed to be the same as the first.
Yeah.
So, which is always hilarious. Because I've got infinite exploding 6s.
Hurrah!
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So look, there you go. That's broadly all the Deathwatch stuff. Yes, they also have access to chaplain litanies, but for the sake of this segment, we're not going to go through those because we're going to assume that most of you know what the litanies are. It's either +1 to hit with shooting, which is what most people use, +2 to your charge, exploding 6s, reroll hits, and some other stuff that most people never really worry about. I don't know.
+1 to wound on the nearest visible enemy unit.
Oh, that one. Yes, that's the other one. Yes, that's the other very good one. So there you go. I mean, look, I think in conclusion, actually, I think there's some very interesting tricks to the Deathwatch, and I actually think as well when you're looking at this army, I really think for a lot of players out there who are considering it from a competitive standpoint. You definitely want to look at adding Deathwatch to an overarching, Space Marine force. I'm still very much of the opinion at the moment that mixing up your Space Marines is the way to go. Personally, I could already see myself thinking about having, to Joe's point, some Assault Bolter Deathwatch models running around the table, backed up by some Imperial Fist eliminators and probably some Thunderfire cannons or things like that, which will, not be super valuable from turn 2 onwards, but they'll have that devastating punch turn 1 and deal with characters, and then probably mix in some Ultramarine aggressors just to be everyone's favourite friend. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, what's your thoughts on this one, Joe? I mean, is it getting your creative juices flowing?
Oh, Andrew, I think pure Deathwatch have a chance now as an army 100%. To win. It's not it's not an auto win army. You will have to work for it. But you do have a lot of tools. The only downside to it is they're a very CP hungry army. So you are going to be looking at double battalions, which then means that you are going to have to be very specific about what units you put into your army to make it work. So I was looking at an army which was 3 5-man squads of Storm Shield and Storm Bolter Marines, and then 3 10-man squads of Intercessors, 2 Assault Bolters and 1 Stalker Bolt Rifle. And then I think I had a Leviathan Dreadnought in it and 2 Mortis Dreadnoughts, just for that backline firepower. And then you can get a watch captain with a jump pack, a watch master, and either a librarian or a chaplain. And then you've got a few points to play around with after that, but not a huge amount. It's a very streamlined army.
I mean, it's fair to say as well, though, right, that these guys still offer Imperium players a really solid Space Marine detachment as well, though, right?
Oh, good. If you've got an Imperial Knight army, Deathwatch are a brilliant troop choice for you because, like, unlike the Rusty 17 or the Loyal 32, Deathwatch, although more expensive, they're a really resilient troops choice that you can rely on to hold objectives and kill stuff. So if you just took intercessors with assault bolters or veterans of storm bolter storm shields, you could put those in a building on the objective and they won't get shifted, but they also hose down annoying, like, move blocking infantry for you as well.
Yeah.
So you don't get bogged down in the annoying stuff. So your big knights can deal with the important things.
And I mean, as well, if you're trying to deal with the thematic side of things, right? I mean, if you're looking at this as a fun, sort of fluffy Imperium list and something that's cool, the Deathwatch are always going to be very likely to turn up if there is some kind of Xenos, thing going on an Imperial world. If there's a small guard garrison that have been holding out against GSC, Gene Stealer Cult, for the last 6 months, it's likely that Deathwatch will turn up. And if
you're a big Eisenhorn fan like me and Phil, you could easily have a guard army with an Inquisitor and a battalion or even a patrol of Deathwatch. Just a one captain, 1 or 2 squads, and then an elites kind of thing, just to add in. And they'll do work for you as well. And if it's just a fun thematic game with your friends, they're just they're a good couple of units to kind of just to paint and build and have a bit of fun with.
Yeah. And they give you a lot of options, right? I mean, we were saying to Phil, weren't we, that he should potentially consider taking his Minotaurs as Deathwatch, but
I think
the purist, he doesn't want to do it, do you, Phil?
No. I mean, you can't. I mean, I'm not sure you could really justify it.
I think you could, because they're a Space Marine hunting army, and back in the day, you just take Stern Guard with the Vengeance rounds, because the Vengeance rounds are originally were designed for killing Space Marines, so they'd have access to all of that stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
It feels like a bridge too far.
Yeah, well, I mean, if Deathwatch had access to successor chapters and you could kind of make your own homebrew Deathwatch, then I could justify it to myself. But the fact that they don't, Deathwatch are Deathwatch, in the same way that Grey Knights are a standalone army onto itself, it would be a bit weird. And I imagine any opponent, if you rocked up with a non-Deathwatch army and said, "Oh yeah, these are Deathwatch," people would be like, "What?" Because it's like I guess you could technically run them as all Primaris Inceptors, for example, or I don't know. Yeah, it's just a bit weird. A step too far, I think.
Yeah.
Just because there's a lot of variations in the models and stuff in terms of what you might standardise how they would be, basically.
Yeah.
I suppose if you gave them all a Deathwatch shoulder pad but painted them as Minotaurs, you could get away with it.
Yeah, a little bit. Maybe I should just paint everything black and change the shoulder pad and keep that one shoulder pad.
Or maybe you should just magnetise their shoulder pads, Phil.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
You could just go, "Ooh, this one looks like a toughie. Time to put on the silver shield."
True. So how do you feel about the fact that they Deathwatch now have access to all the generic Space Marine stuff, but in terms of a Psychic Awakening update, they haven't been given anything new? There's nothing Deathwatch specific here. There's nothing here for the Corvus Black Star per se.
Honestly, I don't think they needed it. Right. So, and this is coming from a Drukhari player who had the first Psychic Awakening book to get released and literally got nothing, right? Whereas Deathwatch have now been given all of the best stratagems and the most important stratagems from the Space Marine Codex, and they've got access to litanies, which are like potentially game changing for that army. They already have everything that they need to win.
Didn't Dark Elder get a special character?
They got an updated model, and he got updated rules. But in terms of army-wide abilities, they kind of got enough. They gave you a whole bunch of... They essentially gave us successor chapter traits, but they're all terrible.
Yeah, it's fair to say that the Drakari were let down by...
Yeah. So in comparison, Deathwatch had an amazing release. And the fact that it's come in White Dwarf just means it's cheaper. You don't have to fork out 20 quid for their rules.
I mean, my side of things on it is I've consistently... it's not surprising in so many ways, but it is sort of a little annoying that GW's approach to the Cyclic Awakening universally seems to have been take the stuff that's good and continue to make it good, if not better, but don't get any kind of ideas or new things to take stuff that wasn't that good and seek to improve it. Obviously I would have loved to have seen some rules that added additional viability to the Corvus Blackstar. It would have been really cool to see some new war gear options for the Watchmasters, because I think that was another thing with like the Watchmasters. What's the name of that key that you can give a Watchmaster?
What is it called? Hang on.
The key thing, the obsidian key.
He used to have one called, because it's now become a stratagem.
That's right. So it would have been nice to see them done something for their sort of specific stuff like that, though, right? Like where they could have come up with something extra to make that, a bit better. But they haven't. They've given it the Marine stuff. I mean, as Joe's rightly said, giving them the Marine stuff makes them really, really strong, because that's just how good the Marine stuff is. But it's not definitely
how would you feel though if they come back with an FAQ and go, oh, actually they can't use their special issue ammunition and bolter discipline at the same time, and then they lose the Dreadnought one, or anything that's kind of broken from this one that got FAQ'd in the previous one.
So what happens then is that your entire Deathwatch army becomes pure Primaris. So if you really look at this update, it's all Primaris.
Yeah.
It's only affecting Primaris units. Nothing of an old school Marine has been updated, essentially, in this.
Well, except for the Land Raider being able to auto blow up and the jump pack guys getting Hammer of Wrath.
Yeah, but Deathwatch have access to Inceptors anyway.
Yeah.
Which is their jump pack unit, so that's just giving them a bonus.
Oh yeah, of course, I get
more
it.
Likely, yeah, so it just points more towards GW replacing old Marines with Primaris.
100%.
It's don't give old Marine stuff, because you want everyone to be using Primaris, so that when they slowly phase out old Marines, like you don't really care because you're not using them anyway.
Yeah.
What I would like to have seen is maybe a Primaris Watch Captain.
Yeah, it'd be cool if they did a new model.
Because it wouldn't have been hard, because you'd keep the same rules, because the Watchmaster, the Primaris Watchmaster, because a Watchmaster has the same rules as a Primaris Captain. His stat line is exactly the same.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been a hard thing to do. I think to your point though, Phil, I mean, they're obviously going to fix the anomalies. This is just a product of, release schedule and other things that they're dealing with. And obviously, right now, it's not really a priority of theirs to fix the bug that is the fact that these guys aren't included in the Marine FAQ, because no one's playing tournaments, right? So that stuff's only there to service those guys. They're not going to worry about that.
Because the chances are, when the tournament scene comes around, people might not be running Deathwatch anyway. So if people start running Deathwatch and they take over the entire tournament scene, then yes, they'll FAQ it. They'll go through their effort. But they probably won't, because how many people have bought this White Dwarf because of the pandemic? And who's going to go back 2 months to try and get hold of it?
Yeah. But regardless, I think obviously if they do FAQ it that the bolter drill or bolter discipline doesn't work with special ammunition, that'll be a bit of a kick in the teeth for these guys. But I don't necessarily think it removes all their viability, because you can still use it in certain ways and so on.
It makes more sense to just run the assault bolter then.
Well, exactly. That's the thing, isn't it? It just becomes Joe's point about the assault bolter becomes an absolute auto include if that happens. But yeah, so there you go. That's Deathwatch, everyone. I think there's some interesting tricks in there. Hopefully you got some ideas. Hopefully you liked our broad appraisal of them. I think they're a good force. I think they've always been a good force. I think the problem is with them is that running them as a pure army is always going to be difficult. So, yeah, I think a pure army of Deathwatch is definitely for the fans. But then even then, I suppose it's a weird one, isn't it? Because if you're a true Deathwatch fan, would you run an entire army of Deathwatch? Because that's not really how they are they?
Well, I think the true Deathwatch fans just run pure armies of them.
Yeah. No,
I think. But most people who like them, like the thematic players will add them into a different army altogether.
Yeah. People like Phil will add them into his armies.
But it won't be other Marine armies.
No.
Because if there's a Marine army in that area, they're not going to waste the effort of sending an additional 10 Deathwatch Marines in.
Unless it's a serious problem.
No.
Anyway, cool. All right, guys. Well, there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. Our appraisal of the Deathwatch. We're going to move on now to whatever it is that comes next. Woo! And that's it, everybody. The end of episode 47 of the Lookout Sir Warhammer 40,000 podcast. Has it been an exciting time for you, Joe? Have you enjoyed episode 47?
It has been, but my house is boiling hot, so it's been a bit of a stuffy sit, you know?
It has been a bit of a stuffy sit, it has to be said. The issue I had this evening was the minute I opened up the window to try and cool the room, all of the creatures lurking out there in the world wanted in. Too many insects out there, I tells you.
See, I have that problem out in the shed, where it's actually nice and cool. I'm in my t-shirt. It's almost a bit brisk and a bit chilly. But it is crawling with ants. Well, not loads, but, you spot the odd one in the corner of your eye, just middling it around on the desk, coming towards your model.
Have you got an ant's nest underneath your shed, Phil?
No, there's one in the garden, unless it's moved somehow. But I think
as if these animals have an ability to move.
they just crawl around everywhere. Like doors do not stop them.
Is your house like the office from Archer? Like every time someone drops food, it's like,
this is how you get ants.
Is this how you get ants? Do you want ants?
Well, I've always made a conscious effort to never eat food in the shed for that sort of reason.
Do you eat it in the garden? Do you eat food in the garden on your little?
Not up near the shed. We've got a little seated area sort of back towards the house, and that's where we might eat some food. Yeah.
Rolling the dice, Phil.
I know.
Taking risks, as it were. On the topic of not rolling dice, though, obviously we haven't quite decided yet whether or not I'm going to try and edit the intro to remove the bit about the Kotick, or if I'm just going to leave it in and then just assume this sort of apology will wash. But obviously, in the original recording of the intro, we talked about the Kotick happening again this week. But then it got to midnight on the Thursday where we were recording about Deathwatch, and we were just like, you know what? We're doing this weekly now. People are put up with it. It'll be fine. Let's not torture ourselves. So hopefully you, our lovely listeners, agree with that and don't overly mind the fact that we didn't do it this week. But obviously, for those of you who have reached out to us and expressed their enjoyment of that segment, obviously we apologise to you most of all. But to everyone else in the general sense who haven't necessarily said anything but are hopefully enjoying it, apologies there also. But don't worry, we will definitely do it next time. It will be our first priority because the good people at GW aren't doing any real major updates now until sometime in May, right, Phil?
I believe so. Yeah.
I think the next preview that they're doing is actually going to be on like the 9th of May, isn't it?
All right. Yeah. I mean, that's probably what 2 weeks time still.
Well, exactly. But that's still 2 weeks worth of filler we got to come up with, mate.
We'll end up eventually having to do Phil's hobby hangout in the shed.
Is that the threat? Is it?
we could get Tim to come on and talk about Tyranids.
It's true.
Yeah.
We are overdue a Tyranid chat.
Did we do a Tyranid talk for Psychic Awakening? Is that a thing?
No, I don't think we did in the end, because I think we talked about the Black Templars instead.
Yeah, but there's a good Tyranid builds coming up. I watched the SN Battle Reports Tyranid battle the other day, and Pardo essentially managed to turn the Scythed Hyrule into a Gallant, but that has 5 up feel no pain.
Wow,
which is quite funny. That thing's terrifying.
Yeah, that's pretty tasty. That guy's a big old mini as well, isn't it?
Oh, it is a beautiful mini.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, he's been around for nearly 20 years, though, isn't he now?
Yeah, well, we are talking about the Hyrule, yeah?
Yeah, the
Forge World one.
The Forge World one, yeah.
I was going to make a pun about Pardo being short, but, you know, he took that away from me.
He'd beat you up if he is.
He would, yeah. I would in no way ever offend Pardo intentionally or to his face.
No, absolutely not.
He would beat the ever-living snot out of me.
He really would, mate.
Plus, I want to go on no retreat, so, you know, gotta be nice.
Well, exactly, mate. One of these days he'll accept you. I heard he liked one of your pictures the other day.
He did. I was like, oh my god, like praise from Caesar. The worst thing is I've since applying for no retreat and failing, I've actually really upped my game on painting. The problem is I've got to wait an entire year now before I can apply again.
Well, yeah, and that obviously depends if they even are able to do it this year. It might be that you won't even be able to apply for 2 years because everyone who got in this year will be going next year.
Yeah, and then I will just weep. Hopefully someone will drop out. And then...
I don't know, mate. It's maybe not as good as you think it is. Maybe we need to run our own event and do it better.
Oh, that's a bold statement.
I mean, how hard can it be? You just get a venue somewhere, put some people in it, say some words in between games. I mean, Bob's your uncle, right?
Yeah, but you got to have.
Robert is your dad's brother, as I should say.
You got to have a nice venue, but you want people. I think that because the people live in the, you stay in the venue that you're playing, don't you?
Mm.
So
well, that is true. They do have the benefit of being on the equator, don't they?
Yeah, it's very similar to Valhalla they have in America.
Mm.
Where they basically hire out a lodge and then run a tournament and stuff in that.
Yeah. It's reasonable to assert that the UK will definitely let us down in terms of quality of surroundings.
Well, I think if you look into the proper, the deep dark countryside of where I grew up, there are some very nice manor houses that you could probably hire out for a long weekend. And
we could go to the moors.
We could go to the moors, yeah.
But would Best Coast Pairing work out there with the non-existent 3G/4G signals? We
do have the internet. We do have copper cabling and stuff. It's not just people in sheds rubbing sticks together to create heat.
Although that does go on.
That probably does go on anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do have some kind of civilization. We got a British Art Foundation and a Tesco.
That's pretty good. I was looking at white spaces for the Big Fat 40K Quiz of the Year because even though it's a good 6-7 months away from being recorded, there's actually quite a lot of production I'm trying to bring to that this year. Are we going to try and beg some people to come onto it this year? I mean, we probably shouldn't we? I mean, I was thinking actually, and here's a mad old thing, I like throwing out the end for the fans to hear my mad ramblings. Maybe we could turn it into an actual live studio audience type deal. Oh, God. That is problems waiting to happen.
Do you remember how long it actually took us to record the Christmas episode?
It is true. But we
People will be bored stiff.
And don't forget that we spent hours upon hours upon hours, me and you, kind of getting it all set up, Dan.
Yeah.
And then we went out for blooming lunch.
It's true. But we were waiting for Adam to turn up. I mean, obviously, we were waiting for Adam to video in from Bournemouth.
Yeah. Which is all the truth.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I don't know, maybe. I don't know, maybe it's a thing we could look at. I mean, I'm currently, working on the set design at the moment. We're going to build... this is my vision for it at the moment. I want to build a proper set. Which is pretty mad. So I'm looking at building 3 desks, and then a scorekeeper's area, as it were. It's a whole thing.
Where are we going to store all this?
Oh well, I'd rather not sort of say, but I'll store it. I'll store it somewhere on my family premises.
Yeah.
Do you think we need to do get Richard back on the show and do like a lockdown edition of the quiz?
We definitely
just in podcast formats.
Oh, we definitely need to do that. Should we do it like the that Mitchell and Webb look one, where it's like, don't think about the event.
Like minus points if you mention lockdown, that sort of thing.
Well, exactly. No. There's this hilarious segment they did on the Mitchell and Webb look called the Comedy Quiz Show, which is literally...
Oh, I think I vaguely remember.
Yeah, now it's time for the quiz broadcast. And then it was literally like someone broadcasting a quiz at the end of the world, basically. There was a woman who was like dressed in a Tesco's uniform with the Tesco's logo tattooed into her forehead. And there was the guy played by one of the characters was just some blind guy who was just like, it was brilliant. It was such a good thing. You should definitely watch it. It's a wonderful example of how much worse things could potentially be in these different.
You say
times.
that I'm rewatching The Walking Dead from the beginning, although I'm quite deep into it already. I think, it could be a lot worse.
Which series are you on now?
They've just arrived at Alexandria, and he's no longer bearded Rick, which means he's lost hours.
What was the name of the one that the governor dealt with?
What is that called?
Was it something like Sunningdale or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that. It was, yeah. Which I think the governor was the best baddie.
100%.
Out of all of it, because he was pure evil. Like, Negan is a great bad guy, but he's still a good guy kind of thing. Like, he's doing bad stuff for a right reason.
Yeah.
Whereas the governor was horrendous.
Well, I think he was just a bit mad, wasn't he?
He was. So I work with a guy who's obsessed, like literally crazy mad for The Walking Dead, and so it turns out the governor is the governor's actually someone pretending to be who he is, which sounds weird. So the governor is actually the brother.
Well, we lost Joe there because he was giving away spoilers, so he was cut off, obviously.
Yeah, so am I back now?
You are back now, yeah. Please continue to spoil The Walking Dead.
No, because it doesn't matter because it's not actually talked about in the Walking Dead TV series.
That's true. Plus, also, I mean, I was going to say spoiler warning, but I figured everything you were going to say is probably wrong, so I'm just sort of letting it roll.
Yeah, so the governor is basically... So the guy is pretending to be his brother, and he's being the governor, which makes the whole storyline part of the little girl a little bit more creepy, because it's his brother's daughter.
I can't say I ever realised that when I watched it.
You don't realise it when you're watching it because it's not mentioned. It kind of just breathes over that fact.
Or that Joe just made this up and it's never actually ever been real.
Yeah, it all could be the Matrix.
Exactly. I think the thing about the governor that made him better than Negan, though, was that the governor was done and dusted in like 2 seasons, whereas Negan went on way too long.
No, I thought you were going to say because of an eye patch.
I mean, obviously the eye patch.
100%.
Yeah. But I think it was more the fact that, you know, we got to know the character as the evil overlord, and he continued to play up to that stereotype all throughout his time. Especially that bit where he uses where he beheads that guy. That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Oh god, yeah.
I mean,
I like his reaction to seeing the tiger for the first time as well. That was a moment to behold. Because he's about to kill Coral, then, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he gets stopped.
The weirdest thing with the governor I remember from watching The Walking Dead was the sequence where him and Rick met for a parley.
Yeah, because it's not explained. You kind of have to figure out. You're like, okay, they hated each other a minute ago.
Yeah.
And now, unexplained to us, Andrea has arranged a parley for them to have a conversation. And the whole episode is them talking in a shack.
Yes.
But
all throughout it, you're just thinking, Rick, just shoot him. Just shoot him, Rick. You've shown us at this point you're just up for shooting people. Just shoot him. Just get it done. Like, what are you doing, mate? It's very frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Good times. All right, brilliant. Well, that pretty much wraps up the show. Thanks very much, guys, for everyone who's listened and enjoyed. Hopefully, you got something out of this episode. As we like to say, if you're interested in reaching out to us, you can find us on Facebook or Instagram. Those are the two places where we're most active. And if you would be so kind or consider it, we really, really love it when people are nice and leave us 5-star reviews, which is why we've been nice and started calling people out at the start of the show. So if you want to be, amongst those people, then maybe consider doing that. Interestingly, I suppose, actually, here's a little tangent before we roll out to the outro. We actually discovered that about over a year ago, we got a 1-star review on the American iTunes, and we were curious whether or not we should acknowledge it. What do you think, Joe? Should we talk about the 1-star review?
I don't know. If it was a year ago, he might have changed his mind. And if we're rude and horrible to him now...
No, I'm not looking to be rude and horrible to him. If someone doesn't like the show, they don't like the show. I'm not interested in trying to change people's minds. I remember...
We can read it out. It's in a public forum. For
Exactly. I mean, I won't do it now. I'll do it in the intro of the next episode. It's like, breaking from tradition, let's read out this 1-star review from a year ago, because I only just discovered it existed. But
just be like, we don't hate you, and we hope that you changed your mind.
Well, exactly. I mean, the thing is, right, when it comes to all this sort of stuff, it's like, I'm not forcing anyone to listen to this stuff. I mean, the thing is, right, it doesn't matter to me one bit if you don't like it or you do like it. So, yeah, I mean, it's great, man. If you don't like it, cool. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback.
I feel like you're going to go and just cry in a dark room now.
No, mate, no. I think, if anything, I mean, in a way, I'm proud of the fact that someone was so annoyed with what we did that they felt like they needed to leave a nasty review where they gave us a 1-star and said that the audio quality was terrible, which, to be fair, a year ago it was.
Yeah, I mean, they probably had a point.
I love when I said that to Phil. Phil's first response was, "Oh yeah, he's got a fair point there." I was like, "For God's sakes, Phil!"
Well, I do remember one time Toke messaged me and goes, "Oh, I listened to that episode, but you nearly blew my speakers out of my car." Yeah. And I think it might have been when we first did was it like the quiz or something? It would have been
the quiz one, yeah.
Because I did the intro, and it seemed like that bit was the bit that went crazy.
Yeah, the quiz was early. We did our first quiz early last year, and that was definitely where it started, where those sort of problems came into effect.
Maybe he's not a fan of the quiz then.
Maybe. I tell you what is weird about that sort of stuff, though, isn't it? Is that, I think, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things. You feel these things out, you work it out, but it is what it is. So, yeah, maybe we'll shout out his 1-star review at some point. Just be like, yeah, cheers, bro.
But that's not to encourage people giving us 1-star reviews for the lols on the off chance we read them out.
Yeah, if you're going to go for the lols, I want 5-star reviews with puns.
Yeah, it's true. Ones that more praising Joe for his buttery face.
Yeah.
That's what he loves most of all. He loves it when you say nice things about him.
Do you think we should do merch with just Joe's face on it?
Yeah.
I mean, why ever not, eh? I feel like that's...
And with the tagline, buttery smooth. People might love that.
That's like in, Final Space. It's like, all you need is some sweet, sweet Clarence.
It's the thing, though, isn't it? You see, I never know with people as well. Like, so when Chris T_BT thing left his 5-star review saying about how Joe's such a sexy and silky man, do you think he was being serious about that, or do you think he's getting in on the whole "let's just bash Joe because it's fun" thing?
I'm hoping that he's serious and that somewhere he's got like in American high school in like films and TV where there's a picture of me inside his locker that he sees every day.
Oh, really? So you hope that he's really creepy?
Yeah. Yeah.
You hope that he's like Alan Partridge's biggest fan?
Yeah. Like, I like to imagine that when he does it, he's still dressed like an American like teenage girl kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like in Not Another Teen Movie where they're all clearly in their mid-30s.
Yes. Have you still been getting like those calls where it's like an insurance person or someone who calls you and then can't be bothered to say anything and then just hangs up? You get those calls now and again on your mobile, right?
Yeah, they're just like, oh, I've done the first step.
Yeah.
Like they've picked up, and then I'll just pretend that they've said no.
But for all this time, it hasn't been that. It's been Chris.
It has, yeah.
He's found your phone number, Joe.
I would appreciate more heavy breathing, though. That's what I want.
Is that your special thing?
That's the mark of a true stalker.
It is true, isn't it? It is true. My favourite one recently was one of my old email accounts that I long forgot about got hacked recently, and I got like triggered because I've got like all these like different accounts to sort of try and make sure that no one can kind of break into stuff. Hopefully. That's not obviously an incentive for you to try and break in, but hopefully you won't be able to. But that's not a challenge. But the point is like it came through, and it was just quite funny the sorts of like things these guys try and pull to try and get you to kind of react. Obviously, like the sort of emails they send and the sort of tricks they try and use to try and get you to care about what they're saying. So yeah, there you go.
Right, my partner recently had one, which is like. It was like an ancient email address, and it's like, we've got the passwords for your account, and if you don't pay us like £2,000, we'll spread it. And it's like it's the password and email address for her Bebo account from like 20 years ago, kind of thing.
Yeah, we had that one. Did they do the thing where they put the password that they'd obviously hacked into the account into the body of your email? It's genius, isn't it? It's like, we know what you've been looking at on the internet, and it's like, oh, okay. Feel free. Like...
I used this email address when I first set up the internet in my house on Tiscali. Well done.
But there will be someone out there who'll be panicked by that, won't they? I mean, it's a relatively good phishing strategy.
Oh God, yeah.
There you go. Keep it up, con men. Keep it up. All right. Anyway, there you go. That's the end of the show. We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much, guys. Please like and subscribe. Consider giving us a 5-star review, and reach out to us on social media if you want to. I tend to respond to almost everyone who reaches out to us on social media because I enjoy the company, because I'm so lonely. Lonely.
And I will inevitably flip if I get added to yet another group chat.
Oh, that is true. That was the thing, wasn't it? If Joe gets one more ad, if anyone adds Joe to a new group chat, you're getting unfriended. Isn't that the rule?
Yeah, that was it. Because my phone nearly vibrated itself off of the sofa the other day from like 6 different group chats, and I was like, and I looked at it and it was like, you've been added to 2 new group chats. I'm like, why? One of them was like a Space Wolf discussion, and I was like, I don't even collect Space Wolves. Why am I here?
You've tried so hard over the last few years, Joe, to become, a Warhammer personality, and you're on the brink of breaking through, right? I mean, you've got 5 different podcasts that you do. You got your thriving Instagram. The Warhammer community in the UK are responding to you, and you hate it now.
I'm going all Kurt Cobain about it at the moment. I'm just like, no,
don't go Kurt Cobain about it, mate.
I don't want.
It's the price of fame.
Yeah. You've sold your anonymity, mate.
But the problem is, I don't live in a nice mansion in a gated community. Well, I can't hide from it. I don't have a butler that looks after my phone for me.
No, that's true. That's true. You don't have people that take care of all of that for you.
I can't remember the last time I actually had my phone on loud, because I actually, after a while, started to hate the sound of my notifications and ringtone.
Well, it's funny, isn't it, Joe? Because you always used to give me a lot of hassle because you'd look at my phone and see all the notifications. You go, I don't know how you live like that. And then it's obviously like these days you're like, no.
Everyone's like, did you see that thing I tagged you in? And I was like, no, because I opened up where it says all my notifications and then just immediately cleared them all. Just like, goodbye,
Yes.
all 30. I don't care what you are.
Indeed. Anyway, look, we've tried to end this thing 3 separate times now. Let's go, shall we? Goodbye, everyone.
It's like the Lord of the Rings where they all start crying and it all fades to black.
Goodbye.
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 Don't leave.
Don't leave. I need this. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.